Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere cold. Like bone-chilling, soul-warping, no you can't feel your fingers cold. Welcome to the deep Viking North, where the winter sun disappears for weeks, sometimes months, and you survive by clinging to warmth, stories, and fermented fish that smells like punishment. This is a time when even the bravest warriors huddle inside, eyes darting toward the creaking roof beams and darkened doorways, because outside isn't just cold. It's alive with ancient forces and half-believed fears, and spoiler alert, you probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. No pressure, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is right now. I want to know who's braving this frost with me. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The darkness doesn't fall all at once. It stretches, yawns, and creeps. Days get shorter until they're just a blink, just enough light to remind you what you're missing. You wake up, and it's still black. You go to sleep, still black. The sun makes only the briefest of visits, low on the horizon, never warming, never promising anything. You begin to wonder if it's even the sun, or just some old light bouncing off the ice. You step outside, breath fogging in the air, and feel the silence. Not quiet. Silence. Everything muffled under snow, everything holding its breath. The fjord is frozen solid. The trees, black skeletons lined in hoarfrost. The sea, usually so alive with spray and shouting oars, is locked still, its surface cracking like old bones. This is the land of your childhood, and yet with the sun gone, it feels like another world entirely. A different realm, just a bit off. You've heard the old ones whisper that this is when the veil between worlds gets thin. And honestly, it kind of feels that way. Every sound matters now. The groan of a timber in the wind, the distant howl that might be wind or wolves or something worse. You've heard the stories, the frost giants that prowl when the world goes dim, the spirits of drowned raiders, still angry, still wet, the eyes in the snowdrifts that never blink. Your village isn't much, just a crooked row of longhouses tucked close to the shore. Thick beams, turf roofs, and walls packed with clay and moss to keep the wind out. At night, little yellow glows leak from the high slits in the walls, just enough to tell you someone's alive inside. But even that light feels fragile. The older men start hauling in the last of the firewood. Nobody jokes around anymore. You and your brother take turns checking the traps out in the woods, always in pairs, always fast. Too many tracks lately, too many wrong footprints. Someone says they saw a hunched figure in the trees. Too big to be a man, too slow to be a bear. You don't ask questions. The sun sets for the last time on the year's edge, and everyone watches. You try to act like it's normal, but deep down your stomach twists. It's not just night, it's the start of the long dark, a season without light. No candles, no fire, not even the northern lights can quite make up for the absence of your old friend, the sun. You never noticed how much you depended on it until it left you. Inside, you begin sealing the world out. Furs over the windows, stones stacked near the door to hold the snow back. Food is stashed in every cranny. Smoked fish, flatbread, dried berries, turnips pickled in sour whey. Your mother even buries a little cheese under the floorboards, something to look forward to if things get really bad. Spoiler, they always do. The chieftain calls a village meeting before the final sunset. It's more ceremony than anything. Just a gathering in the snow, hoods pulled low, torches flickering like nervous eyes. He talks of strength, of the gods, of keeping the hearth burning. He tells the children not to whistle after dark, and to never, ever answer a voice calling their name from the woods. Everyone nods like this is normal, like these rules have always made sense. And that's the thing, you do follow them. Because the longer you spend in this endless night, the more the rules matter. Don't sleep with your feet facing the door. Don't speak ill of the dead. Don't thank the fire, it might start expecting sacrifices. In your longhouse, the hearth becomes the centre of everything. It's not just warmth, it's survival, memory and identity, all tied up in flickering flame. You stare into it for hours, your mind wandering through old sagas and half-forgotten songs. Sparks pop like tiny omens. Every now and then the smoke rises straight up without twisting. That's supposed to be a good sign. Or maybe a warning. Depends on who you ask. Scholars today still argue about how literal the Vikings were about all this. Were the tales symbolic, Or did they truly believe frost giants walked the earth come midwinter? Did they hallucinate visions from smoke and silence? Or did something older actually stir in the dark? There's no consensus, just fragments, bone carvings, ashen runes, half-buried graves with trinkets and teeth inside. One thing's for sure, it's hard to be a skeptic when your breath turns to ice indoors and you hear scratching behind the walls. When dreams feel too vivid and shadows hold too still, you find yourself listening, not just to the wind, but for something. The creak of the door latch, the whisper that sounds like your name. You tell yourself it's nothing, that it's just the dark playing tricks. But deep down, in the part of you that still believes in fire spirits and sea gods, you wonder. Because the night here isn't just a backdrop, it's a character. And it's just getting started. You start to realise, about a week into the dark, that the longhouse isn't just your shelter, it's your whole world now. Outside there's wind, snow, and a constant gnawing cold that feels personal. But inside, it's something different. Something alive. The wood creaks like a giant's joints, and sometimes it sounds like the walls are exhaling. Maybe that's just the smoke squeezing out through the turf roof. Or maybe it's something else. Either way, you try not to think about it too much when you go to sleep. But first, you've got work to do. The longhouse isn't ready yet. The elders say you never truly finish preparing for winter. You just run out of time, so every moment of light, however dim, is used for the final lock-in. The wind's getting worse, screaming across the plains like it's hunting for someone. You help your father drag another tree trunk up to the house, your hands wrapped in wool that's already gone stiff from old blood and wet frost. The log will become a support beam near the north wall. That part of the house keeps sagging like something heavy is leaning against it. Something really heavy. Inside, the whole family's working. Your mother's stuffing the wall seams with more moss and wool. Your little sister's scraping fat from last summer's slaughtered seals, mixing it with ash to make lamp fuel. You try not to gag at the smell. Someone spilled fish oil near the hearth, and now it smells like the ocean died in here. You throw a glance up at the roof. 3 long wooden ribs curved like a ship turned upside down, their tips charred black from years of smoke. This house has stood longer than you've been alive, and if you're lucky, it'll stand through one more winter. Luck's not a guarantee. As night begins its weeks-long hold, you can almost feel the longhouse seal shut around you. The front door gets reinforced with a crossbar. Furs are hung over the frame, stiff with old bloodstains, so no light can escape, and more importantly, nothing can peek in. The single vent in the roof for smoke stays cracked, but just barely. Enough to breathe, enough to cough. You're officially in the belly of the beast now. The longhouse is a marvel of Viking engineering, sure, but more than that, it's a fortress of habit and superstition. Every family has its own little rituals. Your mother knots a piece of red wool and hangs it by the rafters to keep Draugr, undead spirits, from finding their way in. Your uncle mutters a prayer in Old Norse before placing a carved bear tooth over the doorway. Your father, ever the skeptic, just sharpens his axe. This isn't just shelter, it's armour, and you'll need it, because after a few days sealed inside, the warmth turns oppressive. The air goes thick and smoky. Everyone's breath fogs up the room, mixing with the smells of meat, sweat, herbs, and wet wool. The fire in the hearth is always burning, but it doesn't really cut the cold. It just gives you a bubble of survivable temperature. Step too far from the centre, and the chill crawls back into your bones. So you cluster close. Everyone does. And that's where things start to go a little sideways. See, humans aren't meant to live like this. 13 people sharing a single long, low room with no privacy, no fresh air, and nothing but stories, chores, and occasional drama to break the monotony. You begin to notice things, like how your cousin always chews with his mouth open, or how your brother hums that same 3-note tune every time he sharpens his knife. It drives you to madness, and it's only been 5 days, but time's weird now. You can't track it by the sun, and the fire doesn't help. You sleep in shifts, in piles of fur and straw, under the constant hum of people breathing and wood settling. Days blend into nights, which blend into more of the same. Sometimes it feels like you never really wake up, just drift sideways from one uncomfortable reality to the next. And in that blur, the longhouse begins to whisper, literally. At first it's just wind in the beams, but then it's different. You're lying in the dark, staring at the glow of the embers, and you hear what sounds like voices, faint, behind the walls. Your brother says it's the snow settling, Your cousin says it's the bones of the house cracking, but you swear someone whispered your name. You don't tell anyone. You just pull your cloak tighter and pretend you didn't hear it. Not every family builds their longhouses the same way. Some carve faces into the rafters, house spirits meant to watch over them through the dark months. Yours? Your grandfather carved runes into the support beams years ago. You never asked what they meant, but once, when you traced one with your finger, it felt warm, even though the room was freezing. There's a part of you that wonders if the house knows you, if all this fire and smoke and breath has made it come alive, and not necessarily in a friendly way. One night your cousin decides to sleep closer to the hearth than usual. Too close. He rolls in his sleep and singes his hair. The smell is awful. Your aunt wakes up screaming. Nobody really gets back to sleep after that. You try not to laugh about it. Not because it isn't funny, but because it might draw attention, not just from your uncle's fist, but from the house itself. There's an old local saying, if you laugh too loud in winter, something will laugh back. You keep your mouth shut. Modern historians like to focus on the functional side of these longhouses, their structure, the clever airflow, how they stored food or livestock. But Viking stories rarely mention how it felt to be stuck inside one for months on end, trapped with your family and your fears, building up static tension like a wool blanket on dry skin. Some think this claustrophobia gave birth to the richest sagas. That isolation was the forge for myth, that monsters were born not out in the wild but in here, between bodies, between thoughts, between breaths. You start to believe that. Because sometimes when the fire flickers just right and your uncle's snoring cuts out for half a second, you see movement in the shadows on the back wall. Not fast, not threatening, just watching. Still, you tell yourself it's your imagination. But when you glance up at the beam your mother hung the red wool from, you notice it's gone. The thread, the charm, missing. No one says a word about it, and neither do you. 3 days after the red wool goes missing, your father tells you to help dig up the fish. You knew this part was coming. Every family in the village buries their winter food caches in late autumn, marking the frozen ground with notched sticks or bone totems so the snow doesn't swallow them whole. It's simple Viking logic. The ground's already cold, might as well use it. But now the markers are buried under 2 feet of snow, and the world outside is an ice-coated hallucination. Stepping out of the longhouse feels like crossing into enemy territory. Your breath curls in front of you as you trudge behind your father, both of you wrapped in every scrap of wool and fur the house can spare. The snow creaks like old wood beneath your boots. Trees bow with the weight of ice. Somewhere far off you hear something crack, maybe a branch, maybe not. You don't ask questions. You reach the burial mound after about 20 minutes of silent, frozen marching. It's just a lump in the snow now, crowned with a crooked bit of driftwood shaped vaguely like an arrow. Your father gestures with his chin, and you drop to your knees and begin digging, numbing your fingers through your mittens. Snow, then frozen earth, then the faint, familiar stench of preservation. You unearth 3 tightly wrapped bundles, dried fish and seal skin tied with sinew. The smell punches you in the face even before it's fully exposed. The worst part, you're already salivating. You know what this means, your father says quietly, eyeing the smaller than expected haul. You nod. Less than expected. Less than safe. The 3rd bundle is noticeably lighter. Your father opens it, frowns, then swears under his breath. It's not empty, but half-eaten. Not in a tidy, knife-cut way either. Ragged edges. Gnawed. You both stare at it in silence. No words exchanged, because really, what could you say? Animal? Desperate villager? Something else? You rebury what's left, mark the spot again, and turn back. You don't mention it to your mother. She's already staring too long into the fire these days. That night the fish is boiled and served with turnip slices so thin you can see through them. No one talks about the taste, or the smell, or the fact that your brother chews every bite exactly 30 times like he's counting down to something. Your uncle says the snow's too quiet. That's all he says, but it sets off a chain reaction. Your aunt starts muttering about how the animals have stopped moving, that the dogs won't go near the tree line anymore. Your cousin says he saw smoke from the direction of the fjord, but there's no one living out there now. The tension spreads through the longhouse like smoke under the door. Thin, it gets in your clothes, in your lungs. The next morning your mother makes you go back outside, to check the root cellar this time, alone. The cold has become a thing now, not just a temperature but a presence. It pushes against you as you walk. It hums in your ears, and the wind carries a strange tone, almost musical but out of key, like someone humming underwater. The cellar's buried under snow and ice. You dig it out and lift the hatch. Inside, turnips, onions and dried herbs hang in bundles coated in frost. Everything looks fine, until you notice that one of the onion braids has been sliced down the middle. Carefully, cleanly, not by animal, not by wind. You tie it back up with shaking hands and pretend you saw nothing. When you return, your mother tells you to scrub your boots in the snow. Don't bring anything in, she says. You don't ask what she means. That evening, dinner includes a small piece of hakal, fermented shark, dug up from yet another cache. It's an acquired taste, and by taste, we mean smells like rotting ammonia and feels like punishment. The smell clears your sinuses and then some. It's probably older than you, but it's protein, and you need every bit of it. Somewhere in the middle of dinner, someone mentions the old woman on the ridge. She hasn't come down for supplies, your aunt says. Not once. She's probably frozen stiff, someone mutters. No, says your cousin. I saw her last night. Just standing there, in the same spot, not moving. Silence. Your father clears his throat. She's probably just watching for foxes. Without a torch? Old people do strange things. No one brings it up again, but you all eat a little faster that night. Scholars debate whether the Vikings genuinely believed in supernatural creatures, or if these stories were more like cautionary tales wrapped in myth. Some say trolls were metaphors for the wilderness, unknowable, dangerous, and indifferent. Others argue that belief was very literal, that when winter fell, people truly thought the land came alive with old spirits, especially when starvation set in. Regardless, the evidence shows they built their homes not just for warmth, but defence. Against weather, yes, but also against the other things. You notice now that every doorway in the village has a crossbeam. Every hearth has runes scratched into the stone. Every family has their own protective charms, some obvious, some hidden in the dark spaces behind cupboards and under the floorboards. Like everyone's preparing not just for the snow, but for something else the snow brings with it. The next morning, you wake up to your sister crying. The wooden box where the dried apples were stored? Empty, not stolen, just gone. The lid still tied shut, but the apples, gone. Every last one. You remember tying that lid shut yourself. You remember how loud it creaked. Nobody heard it open. Your mother blames mice. Your uncle blames the dog. The dog, for its part, stays curled in the corner, growling softly at the wall. The conversation ends when the fire flares up suddenly, spitting sparks into the rafters. It doesn't do that. Ever. You feel something under your skin. Not fear, exactly. More like a prickle of recognition, as if something familiar is watching, or waiting. The longhouse groans again in the wind, a low aching sound, and someone, not you, not your family, laughs. Just once, outside, far too close. The wind doesn't stop, that's the first thing you notice. It howls for days without pause, like a living thing circling your longhouse, testing the seams. At first it was background noise, just the soundtrack of winter. But now it's constant. Not gusts or breezes, but a steady, dragging pressure that pushes against the walls like it's trying to get in. The older folks say this is how it always sounds before the real cold hits, the kind that splits your fingernails and freezes tears before they leave your eyes. Inside, the fire becomes the only world that matters. It's not just heat, it's the line between life and everything else. Every log burned is a countdown, every spark is hope. You start watching it like it's trying to tell you something, like the flames are speaking in some old tongue you almost understand. It dances, cracks, changes colour, sometimes blue, sometimes red. You keep thinking of the time your cousin said fire could see the future if you stared hard enough. You never took him seriously until this winter. Your family organises their lives around the fire. The youngest sleep closest, elders a little further out. Those on the edges of the circle, they tend to get sick first. Nobody says it, but everyone knows it. You've seen it before. A cough that starts with a shiver, a fever that no amount of herbs can break. Then that hollow look, the one that makes people stop meeting your eyes. To keep warm, you wear every layer you own. Wool tunics over linen underlayers, fur-lined cloaks patched with scraps from animals you can't even remember killing. Everyone smells faintly of smoke and wet dog. You share your sleeping furs with two siblings, back to back like logs in a stack. Sometimes your legs tangle, sometimes they twitch in your sleep, and sometimes, when you're not sure if you're fully awake, you hear one of them whispering in their dreams. Or maybe they're not the ones whispering. Food's harder to come by now. The dried meat tastes like salted bark. The soup's mostly water, thickened with barley when there's any left. Your mother stretches everything with boiled pine needles, which are technically edible, though no one really wants to confirm that twice. You pretend it's fine. You pretend you're full. But your stomach argues. You're supposed to be chopping firewood today, but the logs are gone. Burned too fast, your uncle says. He doesn't look at you when he says it, which means he blames you. It doesn't matter. There's only one place left to go, the forest. Not deep, just far enough to grab fallen branches. But even that's risky now. The snow is thick, up past your knees. You tie on your snowshoes, grab the axe, and hope your boots stay dry. Your brother volunteers to come with you, mostly because he's bored. Bored enough to brave frostbite and wolves. The forest doesn't look like it did in autumn. Everything's white, the trees weighed down and creaking. The silence here isn't peaceful. It's loaded. You feel like you're trespassing in a cathedral where the gods aren't friendly. Every footstep sounds too loud. Every branch you break feels like an invitation to something listening. You gather a few small logs, nothing much. Then your brother nudges you. There, he says, pointing to a line of indentations in the snow. Tracks. Too large for any deer. Too wide for wolves. And there are no claws. Just deep, rounded impressions, like a barefoot giant passed through hours earlier. You both freeze. The wind pushes through the trees again, but now it sounds like breathing. You don't speak of it. You just take your wood and head back fast, trying not to run, because if you run, something might chase. Back inside, the warmth slaps your face like a wet cloth. You're sweating before you've even taken off your cloak. The air inside the longhouse is heavy and sour, thick with damp socks, cooked cabbage, and unspoken things. Someone spilled lamp oil near the hearth, and now the smoke smells bitter, almost metallic. You put the firewood down near the entrance and peel off your outer layers, only half listening as your uncle complains about the draught in the back wall. He thinks something's been chewing through it. Your aunt says it's just the cold settling. Your sister insists she saw a hand, just a hand, slip between the logs and vanish. Nobody listens to her, not because they don't believe her, but because they might. That night the fire spits violently. A single ember pops, arcs across the room, and lands in your cousin's hair. He slaps it out before it burns too much, but the smell of singed scalp lingers. He laughs it off. You don't. When the fire dies down, your father tells a story. Not one of the usual sagas, no Odin or Thor or epic revenge plots. This one's quieter, stranger, about a man who lived alone at the edge of the forest. How, one winter, his fire kept going out for no reason. No matter what wood he burned, no matter what charms he placed, the flames wouldn't last. Then one night, he woke to see a woman crouch beside his hearth, scooping the embers into her hands and blowing on them like a child with dandelions. When he called out to her, she turned. Her eyes were empty holes. She smiled, and the fire never came back. No one claps when the story ends. No one says, again, just the crackling of wet logs and the soft rhythmic cough of your uncle. Historians like to analyse these types of stories as metaphors, tales told to teach fire safety, or the importance of vigilance in the dark months. But oral tradition in Viking culture was more than folklore. It was protection, memory as magic. If you forgot the old warnings, you didn't just lose your heritage, you left your door wide open. There's debate among scholars about how much weight Vikings gave to house spirits and hearth entities. Some say they were quaint ideas, like a Nordic version of gremlins. Others argue they were deadly serious. Every fire, every flame had a watcher, and if you didn't honour it, it left you. Or worse, it turned on you. You don't know where you fall on the spectrum of belief. But that night, you can't stop staring into the coals. You think you see a shape inside them. Not a face, exactly. Just the outline of something watching back. You don't blink until it fades. You wake to a scream. It's not loud, more like a startled gasp, quickly smothered. Your brother is sitting up beside you, eyes wide, shaking his head like he's trying to unsee something. He doesn't speak. No one asks. By morning, he's back to chopping wood, lips tight, eyes sunken. When you sit by the fire that evening, your mother touches your hand. Don't stare too long into it, she whispers. It remembers. You try not to ask what she means, but later, when you blink, you swear the embers spell your name. Your sister disappears on the 12th night. It's not loud or dramatic. She doesn't scream or leave a trail. One moment she's there, curled up near the hearth, bundled in her wolfskin cloak, her tiny breath puffing out into the warm air. The next, she's just gone. No door opened, no floorboards creaked. She's simply not in the longhouse anymore. It takes your mother a while to realise it. At first she thinks the girl's gone to relieve herself in the snow pit out back, but when 5 minutes pass, then 10, then 20, the truth sets in. The kind that grabs your chest with a hand made of ice and won't let go. Your uncle blames the drafty wall. She slipped out through there, he mutters. Kids are small. Can fit through spaces we can't. But you've seen that wall. The gap isn't big enough for a rabbit, let alone a person. And besides, no one leaves the longhouse alone at night. No one. That's not a rule, it's a reflex. A search party is sent out immediately. Your father, 2 of your older cousins, and your neighbour Kettle, who has eyes like a hawk and legs like a deer. They each carry a torch and a spear. Your mother tries to follow, but your uncle grabs her by the shoulders. Let them find her, he says. His voice is firm, but his hands are shaking. You and your brother stay inside, sitting near the hearth as the fire hisses and pops. No one talks. The flames feel colder tonight, like they're just going through the motions, casting light but no warmth. Someone adds more wood, but it doesn't help. The shadows still stretch too far. They cling to the corners of the room like cobwebs with teeth. An hour passes, then 2. The searchers return with frost on their beards and empty hands. No sign of her, no tracks, nothing. She's just gone. Your mother sobs into her cloak. Your father doesn't say a word. He just sits down by the door, staring at the space she used to sleep. The next morning your cousin swears he saw her outside in the night. Says she was standing at the edge of the trees, barefoot, wearing nothing but her shift. Says she looked right at him, but didn't speak, didn't blink, just smiled. Your uncle hits him for saying it, but the damage is done. Now every creak in the roof sounds like footsteps. Every draft feels like a hand brushing past your neck. That day, you hear someone whispering behind the smoke vent. You climb up, open the flap and shout into the wind. Nothing. But that night your boots are full of snow inside the house. No one laughs. No one even questions it. Just more wood on the fire. More silence. In the old stories, trolls come down from the mountains in the dead of winter, lured by smoke and meat. They're huge, stupid and hungry. But in the older stories, the ones the elders only whisper after too much mead, there are other things, not loud, not clumsy. They don't break down doors or roar in your face. They invite you. They wait until you open the door yourself. The Norse called them Veta, spirits of the land, some kind, some cruel, some hungry, some just curious. They don't always need your body. Sometimes they just want your warmth. Your sister was always the warmest of you all, always laughing, always snuggling too close, always humming old lullabies no one had taught her. Now there's silence where she used to be. The next evening, your mother puts out a bowl of milk near the door. Offer, she says, when your father scowls. He doesn't argue. The bowl freezes solid by morning. No one touches it. That day, the fire refuses to light. You try everything. Dry moss, pine sap, old cloth. You whisper every charm you know, even the one your aunt said was just a joke from her childhood. Something about singing to the fire like it's a lonely man in a cave. Nothing. Finally, your father lights a torch and holds it to the hearth, and even then the flame struggles like it's being smothered by invisible hands. When it finally catches, it's weak, thin, almost blue. You don't sit as close that night. Modern scholars sometimes suggest that Viking winters produced their own kind of cabin madness, a shared psychosis brought on by vitamin deficiencies, lack of light, and long periods of confinement. And yeah, maybe that explains why no one in your family will admit what's happening, why they insist she wandered off, even though the snow was untouched and the door was still locked from the inside. Maybe your cousin's sighting was just a dream. Maybe your boots filled themselves with snow, but that doesn't explain the voice. It happens late, well past the second sleep in that weird in-between time when the embers go quiet and the air grows colder than it should. You're lying half awake, watching the smoke curl toward the vent when you hear it. A giggle, faint, familiar. Then, come outside. I found something. You sit up. Your heart skips, then races. It's her, your sister's voice, clear as daylight, playful, innocent, then wrong. It's coming from the back wall. The one with the narrow draft where the red wool charm used to hang. The one with chew marks near the base. You don't move. You don't breathe. Then you hear it again. Come see. It's beautiful. And underneath it, something else. A low, breathy sound. Like something laughing through closed teeth. You don't go to the wall. You don't answer. You roll over and pull your furs tight. And eventually the voice stops. The next day your father nails a horseshoe above the door. You've never seen one in your life. Don't even know where he got it. Your mother smears ash across your forehead and mutters a prayer you don't recognise. Your uncle draws runes into the frost on the windows with the tip of his knife. Everyone knows. No one says it. Your sister's space by the fire remains untouched. But one morning you find a single strand of her hair coiled in the ashes. Still warm, still smoking. You say nothing, and the wind howls, and the fire sputters, and no one looks toward the back wall anymore. By the time the wandering Scald finally appears, you're so deep in the long night that you've almost forgotten there's a world outside the longhouse. Days and nights blend into one long smear of smoke, whispers, and the muted sound of snow slapping against the turf roof. You're huddled near the hearth, drowsy from hunger, when the door latch rattles. At first you think it's the voice again, the one that calls from the wall, but then you hear a deep, deliberate knock, 3 times, heavy, real. Your father moves first, spear in hand, but his movements are slow from cold and fear. He unlatches the door and the wind immediately slaps into the room, carrying ice and the smell of pine sap. And behind it, a man, not one of yours. He's tall, wrapped in a patchwork of furs that look older than your village. His beard is frosted stiff, his cheeks raw, but his eyes are bright. Too bright, like he's been staring at the aurora for days. On his back he carries a harp made of driftwood and bone, the strings wound from something that doesn't quite look like gut. A fire, he says hoarsely, voice cutting through the room, and a drink if you've got it. No one moves at first. You're used to visitors in summer, traders, hunters, fishermen, but in winter, in this winter, people don't just stroll up to your door unless they've got a very good reason, or a very bad one. The Scald takes another step inside, shutting the door behind him. The air feels thicker with him in it. He doesn't smell like smoke or sweat or animal fat. He smells like cold metal and pine needles and something older, like a glacier ground down into powder. Your mother finally stands, offers him a wooden cup of thin mead. He drinks it in one gulp and lets out a sigh like he's exhaling a whole saga. Then he sets his harp down near the hearth and kneels so close to the fire that his beard crackles. I've walked from the fjord, he says, eyes fixed on the flames. Ice thicker than the ribs of a whale. No tracks but my own. No birds, no foxes. He looks up at your father. You've lost someone. No one told him. No one said her name. But he says it like a fact, not a question. Your father stiffens. We're not telling stories tonight. The Scald smiles without showing his teeth. That's exactly what you need. And so, despite your father's glare, the stranger begins to play. The harp's strings hum like wind through a graveyard, soft and strange. It's not a melody you recognize, not even one of the sagas. It's older than that, older than words. He sings low, in a language that feels like it belongs to the stones under the snow. Your skin prickles. Even the dog lifts its head, ears twitching, and then slinks off to a darker corner of the house. The Scald tells of a time before the gods were born, when the world was only frost and fire, and the first beings crawled from the rime to steal warmth from the void. He sings of Veta, the hidden ones, the watchers under the earth, how they rise when the nights grow long enough to hide in plain sight. He sings of a child taken from a hearth, traded for a shadow that learns to speak but not to breathe. Your mother gasps and crosses herself in the old way. Your uncle spits into the fire. You want to stop listening, but you can't. His voice is low and gravelly, yet somehow it's in your head as much as your ears. Every word feels like it weighs something, like you could pick it up and throw it. When he stops, the fire sputters once, then flares up so bright you have to look away. For a heartbeat, you swear you see a shape in the flames, a girl's silhouette, small and thin, reaching out a hand. Then it's gone. The Skald drinks again, slower this time. "You've got something behind your wall," he says softly. "I can smell it." Your father's jaw tightens. "It's the wind." The stranger shrugs. "Maybe. Or maybe you've been sharing your warmth without asking who's at the table." Your mother whispers, "Can you help us?" The Skald looks at her for a long time. "I can sing. Singing's all I do, but sometimes a song is a knife." He stays the night. Of course he does. No one travels the frozen dark after sunset. You give up your spot by the fire for him, which means you're further from the heat than you've ever been. Every time you start to drift off, you hear his harp strings shudder, like they're being plucked by invisible fingers. Sometime in the night you wake to the sound of him whispering. Not words you understand, just a low hum, like bees caught under ice. The flames flicker in response. The shadows on the walls twist. You close your eyes tight. You tell yourself it's just a story. Modern historians think the Skalds, the poets and storytellers, were more than entertainers. They were living archives, memory keepers, magicians with rhyme instead of runes. Some believe their songs were charms, coded prayers designed to keep spirits at bay during the long dark. Others say that's superstition layered on performance art, but there's no denying the effect he has on the room. Everyone sits straighter. The air feels heavier but cleaner, like a storm has passed. Even your father, who trusts nothing but iron and wood, looks at the stranger with something almost like respect. By morning, the Skald's already awake, sitting cross-legged before the hearth. He's tracing something into the ashes with his finger. You can't quite make it out. Curves, dots, a spiral. When he notices you watching, he sweeps it away. "Don't stare too long at shapes," he murmurs. Sometimes they stare back. He takes his harp, stands and looks at the door. "I'll be gone before the wind changes," he says. "Keep the fire talking. Don't let it go quiet." Then he's gone, swallowed by the snow, leaving only a faint smell of pine and iron. When you go back inside, the fire seems stronger than before. But in the back wall, where the red wool charm once hung, the wood looks darker, almost scorched. The Skald's visit leaves the longhouse humming like an overstrung harp. No one talks about it directly, of course. Not even your mother, who hasn't let go of her wooden prayer beads since he vanished into the snow. But something changed. The hearth burns brighter. The air feels less still. And yet, the silence behind the back wall has gotten heavier, like it's leaning in closer, waiting for the next opening. The fire might be stronger, but so is whatever's watching from the other side of the timber. You try to focus on chores. You help your father with the buckets of frozen waste, which get dumped into a pit outside the house and then covered with snow. It's gross and boring, and you're grateful for it, honestly. Anything that gets you moving. But today, when you're dragging the heavy lid off the waste pit, you hear a voice. Not a whisper this time. A deep, echoing voice, like someone shouting from under the ice. You freeze. Then a second voice answers it. Closer, you look up, but the sky's just a flat white dome and the trees are still. Your father sees your expression and grabs your shoulder hard. "Don't listen," he says. "Just dump it. Walk away." You do. You don't ask questions. Not out here. Later that night, the fire is low, but your father doesn't add more wood. Instead, he turns to the family and clears his throat. "They walk during this season," he says quietly. "The gods." Your aunt snorts, but your father doesn't back down. He's not one for stories. He leaves the sagas to the old men and the bored women, but tonight he stares into the flames like he sees something moving in them. Odin travels with the hunt, he says. He walks the forests in the shape of a man, followed by wolves, and those taken in the snow become part of his procession. You hear your brother whisper under his breath, "She joined them." You kick him gently and he glares but says nothing else. The hunt. You've heard the stories. A thundering noise in the sky, hooves, howls, the scraping of iron. If you hear it, you're supposed to lie flat in the snow, face down, and not look up until the sound passes. Otherwise they see you, and if they see you, they might mistake you for one of theirs. Or worse, they might decide you're one of theirs. That night, your uncle insists on taking the first watch. Not a formal decision, just something he mumbles as he props himself up against the wall near the fire, spear across his lap. He's been on edge since the Skald left, sharpening his knives even though no one's planning to hunt. The others drift off slowly. The fire pops and cracks. You dream of boots crunching over brittle ice, of the faces peering through windows with eyes full of stormlight. When you wake, the longhouse is full of snow, not a little dusting, drifts, thick waves of it spilling in through the door, an open door, the crossbar broken and leaning off to one side. Your uncle's gone. Panic flares through the house like someone tossed oil on the fire. Everyone's up, boots and cloaks flying, voices rising in fear. Your father and cousins rush out into the white before the wind can swallow the trail. You stay behind with your mother, who's clutching her beads so tight her knuckles are white. There's no blood, no signs of a struggle, just one set of footprints leading out, not toward the woods, but across the fjord. They find him an hour later, sitting on the ice in his shirt sleeves, barefoot, humming to himself. He doesn't react when they touch him, doesn't blink, just keeps staring straight ahead at nothing. His lips are blue, but he's not shivering. He doesn't speak for the rest of the day. Your father brings him back and wraps him in furs. The fire is built high. Everyone takes turns feeding him hot broth and whispering prayers. He finally murmurs something just before sunset. They were flying, he says. The sky opened and they rode through it. Who? Your cousin asks. He doesn't answer. Just closes his eyes and doesn't open them again until morning. When he finally comes back to himself, really comes back. He doesn't remember anything past his third cup of mead that night. Says he was watching the fire. Says he saw something move. Next thing he remembers is waking up with frost on his eyelashes. People start to say Odin's watching the valley. You think about the old woodcuts, paintings of him in his wide-brimmed hat, cloak flapping in an unseen wind, wolves at his feet, one eye missing, staff in hand, and you wonder, what does a god look like walking through snow? Would you know if you saw him? Would he know you? There's a story your grandfather used to tell before he died 2 winters ago in his sleep with a smile on his face. He said the gods came down during the longest nights to see who remembered their names, not out of vanity, but out of necessity. If their names were forgotten, their power slipped away. They faded. But if you spoke them, even whispered them into the coals, they knew. They listened. He said Odin could hear the wind and the fire, and if you spoke with respect, he might leave you a gift, or take something in return. That night the fire dances higher than usual. Someone, no one admits who, leaves a bowl of blood and bone broth outside the door, just in case. The next morning it's frozen solid. But the bowl is gone. Only a hoofprint remains in the snow beside the door. It's not from any animal you recognize. Scholars argue whether the wild hunt was a Viking invention or something imported from Germanic or Celtic traditions. The earliest mentions are cryptic, scratched into stones, whispered in sagas, buried in church warnings. Some say it was symbolic, the storm as a metaphor for death's approach. Others think it was a real belief, a fear so baked into the winter psyche that it shaped behaviour, kept children inside, gave a face to the otherwise formless dread of long nights and longer silences. You don't care what scholars think, not anymore, because that night you hear it. Low at first, like distant thunder, then sharper, rhythmic, hooves on ice on rooftops. Then a horn, not loud but high and lonely, like it's calling something from under the earth. Your mother drops to the floor, face buried in her arms. Your father shoves you down flat beside the hearth, face pressed to the floorboards, mouth full of straw. Don't look, he hisses. You don't, but you feel it pass. The way you feel heat on skin without touching fire. The way a nightmare leaves its handprint on your back even after you wake. Afterward, no one speaks until morning. When you sit up, your back is stiff. There's frost in your hair. Your father's eyes are bloodshot. Your mother's rosary is snapped. Wooden beads scattered across the dirt floor. No one touches them. You glance at the door. The hoofprint's still there, but now there are 3. The winter solstice arrives with no ceremony, no sunrise, just a deeper blackness in the sky, and a silence so complete it feels like a threat. You're told it's the longest night of the year, but honestly it's hard to imagine the night getting any longer. Time's already stopped behaving. You eat when you're hungry, sleep when you can, and mark the hours by how often someone stokes the fire, or how many times the dog growls in its sleep. The calendar stones say this is Yule, and with Yule comes the old rites. You don't feel much like celebrating, but tradition doesn't care how you feel. That morning your father starts preparing the goat. It's not an easy decision. Meat's running low, and the goat could have been milked through the spring. But the offering has to be fresh, warm, and loud enough to catch the god's attention. The blood is what matters. That's what the elders always said. Your cousin sharpens the knife while your little brother gathers pine boughs to lay at the altar. Not a real altar, of course, just a flat stone near the edge of the forest, ringed with ice-blackened logs, and an old carving so worn down it could be a face or just a trick of the weather. It's been there longer than the village, longer than any of your stories. You walk out in a tight group, everyone silent except the goat, which bleats as if it knows. Snow falls so slowly it looks like ash. The sky's the colour of bruises. The air smells like iron. Your father says the prayer in a voice rough from smoke and sleep. He thanks the gods for what little you've been given. He asks for protection. Then he cuts the goat's throat over the stone, the blood steaming as it hits the frozen slab. It sizzles faintly, like the stone is hungry. Your mother places a piece of bread on the altar. Your brother adds a carved wooden horse. Your aunt drops in a small gold ring, muttering something about interest paid. You wonder what kind of bargain she struck last winter. The blood pools. You don't look away. You can't. For a moment, just as the final drop hits the altar, you hear a sound behind you, like breathing, but deep. Too deep for any person. The trees don't move, the wind doesn't rise, but something shifts in the world around you, like a curtain pulling back. Then it's gone. You head back to the longhouse, the goat's body slung between two poles. What meat is left after the ritual gets roasted, which means you get your first real meal in weeks? It's salty and bitter and somehow still tough, but it fills your belly and fogs your head. The adults drink mead from the hidden reserve, and a few of them even laugh. Not for long, not too loud. But for a few minutes the fire crackles like it used to, and the longhouse feels like a place people live instead of just hide. Then the singing starts. Your uncle hums first, something low and rhythmic, the same tune he used to sing during boat building in the summer. Your aunt joins in, then your mother. It becomes a layered chant, slow and haunting. Not joyful, never that, but strong, old. The kind of song that doesn't belong to anyone in the room. You don't know the words, but your mouth forms them anyway. You think, maybe this is what keeps the dark at bay. Maybe this is the real offering. Not every Yule is this grim, of course. In better years, warmer years, there would be dancing, feasts, carved figures hung from beams, even a Yule log dragged in from the forest and kept burning for all 12 nights. The kids would wear masks of goats or trolls and go from house to house pretending to be spirits. You did it once when you were younger, banged on doors, shouted nonsense, got little cakes in return. It felt like a game. It doesn't anymore. Because tonight, during the singing, the fire flares again, and in the flame you see something. It's just a flicker, barely more than a shadow. But it's there. A face. Pale. Thin. Eyes too wide. Just watching. Right in the centre of the fire, like the logs have cracked open to reveal it. You blink, and it's gone. You look around. No one else seems to have noticed. Or they're pretending not to. There's an older tale, one your grandmother told once when she thought you were asleep. She spoke of the Yule beings, not the gods, not the trolls, but something in between. Spirits that live in the snowdrifts who only stir when the songs stop. They don't demand sacrifice. They don't punish openly. They just take whatever isn't guarded closely enough. She said if you leave your shoes too near the door, they'll fill them with ash. If you leave a bowl unwashed, they'll drink from it, and then the sickness comes. If you leave a bed unoccupied, they'll lie in it, and you'll never get that bed warm again. It sounded like superstition back then. Now you keep your boots near the fire every single night, and still, one morning you find a handful of ash under the heel. Some historians argue that Yule was never meant to be cheerful, that it was less about celebration and more about bribery. You're not thanking the gods, you're paying them off. The gifts, the singing, the blood, they're all insurance. Keep the bad things from noticing you. Let the bigger villagers draw their attention. You're starting to believe it. Because the morning after the Yule rite, you find something in the snow near the goat altar. Not a footprint, no human shape, just a wide, round depression in the crust. Deep, smooth, like something massive pressed down into the snow with no visible weight. Next to it, a piece of your sister's cloak, frozen stiff. You stare at it until your father comes and wordlessly picks it up. He doesn't speak for the rest of the day. Inside the longhouse, the mood shifts again. No more singing, no more talking after dark. Everyone begins watching the fire more closely, as if it's telling you a story you don't want to hear. That night you wake with your eyes open before you know why, and there she is, your sister, standing by the hearth, no movement, no breath, just standing, watching you. You don't speak, don't move, and slowly, she lifts her hand, points toward the back wall, then vanishes like smoke in wind. The fire goes out just for a second, but it's enough. By the 9th night after Yule, the howling begins. Not just wind, howling. Long, rising notes that travel through the valley like a horn blown underwater. You're used to wolves in winter, their cries echoing from the ridges. But this sound isn't layered like a pack. It's singular, thin and high, like a flute carved from ice. It drifts in and out of hearing, sometimes directly above the longhouse, sometimes far off toward the fjord. You wake from dreams convinced it's inside the room, pressed against your ear. No one speaks of it at first, but the dog knows. It refuses to go near the door now, curling instead by the ash bin, nose tucked under tail, shivering even when the fire's high. Your mother takes to rubbing salt along the doorframe. Your father carves runes into his spear shaft until it's almost white with shavings. On the 10th night, you're sent to fetch water from the snow pit behind the house. It's dark, of course, but you've learned to feel your way without light, just your boots crunching over crust, your fingers sliding along the roofline until you reach the hole. You're halfway back, bucket swinging against your knee, when the howling rises again. This time it's close. So close you feel it vibrate the air in your lungs. And then, another sound beneath it. Hooves? Number. Something like wings beating heavy and slow, pushing snow off branches. You can't see anything. The dark is total. But in your head, you get a picture. A procession. Cloaks flapping. Eyes like pale stones gliding through the black trees. The hunt. Your grandfather once said you can always tell when the hunt's near because the wind stops. Dead silence, then the horn, then the sound of paws and hooves and claws. You never believed him. Now, with the snow pressing against your boots and your breath freezing in mid-air, you believe. You run the last few steps to the door and slam it shut behind you. Inside, your family's faces are already pale. They heard it too. The dog growls at the roof. The fire pops but doesn't throw sparks. Your father mutters a prayer to Odin under his breath. Your aunt begins humming the old chant from Yule but stops halfway, like she's afraid it might draw attention. Later, lying awake under your fur, you remember the Skald's words. Sometimes a song is a knife. What if you've been singing the wrong thing? What if you've been calling them in, not keeping them out? When sleep finally comes, it's shallow and strange. You dream of walking barefoot across a frozen sea, the ice cracking but never breaking. You're following a line of torches ahead of you, some moving on foot, some gliding above the ground, some flickering like stars. At the front is a rider with one eye and a cloak full of birds. He turns his head, and though he's far away, you feel his gaze burn through you like cold fire. You wake gasping, your breath a cloud in the dark. The fire's gone low again, and there's a shadow in the back corner that doesn't belong to anyone sleeping. Your father decides the only thing to do is strengthen the protections. The next day, he and your brother go out to the tree line and cut down 3 small firs, dragging them back to plant upright in the snow outside the door, a green barrier against the dead. Your mother hangs iron keys on each of the branches. Your aunt spits into each corner of the room, muttering charms. You're sent to gather ashes from the hearth and spread them in a circle inside the house. As you scoop, you notice the ashes are warm even though the fire's been out for hours. There's a smell you can't place, sweet like flowers but sour underneath. When you pour the ashes onto the dirt floor, they form shapes. Not random scatter, lines, curves. You swipe them away fast before anyone else can see. That night the howling changes. It's not a single note anymore, it's a chorus. You hear horns, low and droning, hooves, faint but steady, and something like laughter, distant but unmistakable. Your father orders everyone flat to the ground. Don't look, he hisses, don't breathe hard. You lie face down in the straw, heart pounding so hard you feel it in your teeth. The sound swells until it's everywhere, the roof, the floor, inside your head. The dog yelps once, then goes silent. You bite your sleeve to keep from crying out. And then, it stops. Just like that. You lift your head slowly, the fire is out, The room is freezing. Frost coats the inside of the walls. At the door, pressed into the wood, is a handprint. Large. 4 fingers, no thumb. Your brother whispers, "They're inside." No one contradicts him. In the days that follow, the hunt's passing becomes part of life. Every night the horns, the hooves, the laughter. Every morning new marks in the snow. Shallow trenches like something dragged by invisible chains. Sometimes you hear wings beating above the roof, a gust of powder falling from the turf as if claws gripped it. Your uncle starts carving a wooden idol of Odin, eyes wide and blank. He sets it near the fire and feeds it scraps of meat. Your mother begins praying to Freya at dawn and dusk. Your father sharpens his spear to a needlepoint. You do your chores, but everything feels like a performance. You eat your thin stew, you mend your worn gloves, you act like the world isn't coming apart, but deep down, you know you're living on borrowed time. Modern historians love to map the wild hunt to natural phenomena, storm fronts, auroras, migrating animals. They point out that winter hallucinations are common in high latitudes, but that doesn't explain the marks on your door, or the hoofprints you've seen across the frozen fjord, or the way your sister's voice still echoes from the back wall at night, whispering, "Come see." It's not weather. It's not a story. It's something older, something that remembers you. The 9th night ends with silence. No horns, no howls, just a stillness so complete your ears ring with it. Everyone in the longhouse lies awake, not daring to move, waiting for something to break. When dawn, if you can call it that, comes, you open the door to check the snow. There are no footprints, no marks, but every tree outside is stripped of its bark from the roots up to a man's height. And on the altar stone by the woods, someone, or something, has left a single fresh goat hoof, still warm. At first you think the goat's hoof is some kind of warning, a piece of the animal you sacrificed returned in mockery, but it's not from your goat. The one you offered at Yule was brown, hooves cracked and worn from scrambling over rocks. This one is different, smaller, black, polished like obsidian, and so smooth it reflects the sky, even in this grim half-light. Your father tries to pick it up but jerks back like he's touched a hot coal. He doesn't try again. Instead he buries it in the snow 3 feet down and marks the spot with a flat stone. Your mother doesn't say a word the whole day. That morning the smoke from your hearth won't rise. It curls low and thick, filling the house until your eyes sting. You have to crack open the back vent just to breathe, which lets in cold so sharp it makes your teeth ache. Still, the fire is better than no fire. Without it, everything freezes, including the people. Your uncle started coughing again, a wet, barky sound that echoes too loud in the close quarters. He insists it's just the smoke. "Ash in the lungs," he mutters. But then you notice the spots of red on his bedding, the way he presses a cloth to his lips when he thinks no one's looking. You all know what it means, you just don't say it. That night, your cousin suggests drawing the sun on the walls. "Just until it comes back," he says with a shrug, like it's not desperate. He takes a charred stick from the fire and sketches a small circle over the door, then another over the window, then another above the hearth. It feels silly. But when he finishes, something shifts in the room. Just a bit. Like the shadows ease back half an inch. No one laughs, no one erases them. By morning, everyone's drawn their own, little black suns. Some with rays, some plain, some with eyes in the middle. They spread like mould across the longhouse walls, tucked into corners, carved into beams, hidden behind drying meat and hanging herbs. And it's not art, it's begging. The sun hasn't risen in almost 6 weeks now. You've stopped expecting it. But today you feel something shift in the air. It's faint, barely noticeable. A strange lightness in your chest. You step outside at the hour the old sundial stone would have marked noon, and for a moment, just a moment, you see a pale gold smear on the horizon. You blink. It's gone, but it was there. You run back inside, breathless, and announce it to the house. No one reacts the way you expect. There are no cheers, no relief. Your mother just sets down the bowl she's cleaning. Your aunt closes her eyes. Your father grips the hilt of his knife and whispers, "Too early." You blink again, confused. Too early. Isn't this what you've all been praying for? But your uncle says it too in his ruined voice. The sun comes back after the hunt rides home. If it's here now, it means they're still out there, still looking, still choosing, and they haven't taken enough. You try not to think about what that means, but that night you dream again. This time you're walking through your village, except everything is made of ice. The houses shimmer, perfect and empty. The sky is wrong, green and purple and pulsing like breath. And in the centre of it all is a tree made entirely of bones. Antlers for branches, vertebrae for the trunk. It's glowing from the inside, and your sister is standing beneath it, wearing a crown of snowflakes that don't melt, smiling. You wake to find the fire burned down to a soft orange pulse. Your brother is gone from his bedroll. You leap up, heart in your throat, but he's there, curled against the wall, teeth chattering, eyes wide open. "I saw her," he whispers. "She was just outside. She was holding a bundle. I think it was the sun." You grab his shoulders, shake him gently. "She's dead," you whisper. "She's gone." But you don't believe it. Not really, because even now you smell her. The faint scent of pine and fir and salt. The way her skin used to smell after she'd run through the woods. You smell her like she never left. The elders used to say that the dead can borrow warmth if they miss you too much. That's why you're supposed to bury their clothes and never speak their name after the second frost. Otherwise they linger. Not as ghosts. Vikings didn't believe in ghosts the way we do, but as echoes, drafts, reflections in the water, unclaimed warmth in the bed next to you. Your mother quietly burns your sister's old scarf that morning. She doesn't say why. Around this time, the hallucinations begin, or at least you tell yourself they're hallucinations. You see movement outside even when the wind is still. You hear knocking from the back wall again, slow, deliberate, like someone rapping their knuckles on wood just to check it's still solid. The fire flares and dims without reason. The little suns drawn on the walls begin to fade, rubbed away not by hands but by something subtler. Smoke, maybe, or time, or fingers. And now the debate begins. Should someone leave an offering? Not a goat, not broth, something more. Your aunt says the hunt won't pass until it gets a real gift. Something that hurts. Her eyes land on your uncle. He's coughing blood into his hands now. Too sick to stand, too sick to fight. "I'll do it," he croaks, when he sees the looks passing around the room. "Before it takes one of the healthy." Your father says no, but he doesn't sound certain. And that night, while everyone pretends to sleep, your uncle limps outside. Alone, no one stops him. The next morning, the snow outside the door is disturbed. There are no footprints, just a long, smooth furrow, as if something was dragged into the woods. You find a single line of blood arcing up one of the fir trees by the door. Above it, someone scratched a rune into the bark. It's not in any language you recognize, but it hurts to look at. That afternoon, the smoke rises clean for the first time in days. The dog eats again. Your brother smiles in his sleep. The fire burns brighter. You know what this means, and you hate yourself for feeling relieved. Modern scholars refer to this as ritual substitution, the idea that when things got bad enough, when storms didn't stop or winter ran too long, something living was sometimes offered. A body for the gods, a stand-in for the sun. Of course, they say there's no proof, no bones buried in ritual circles, no runes spelling it out. But what if the absence of proof is the ritual? What if the point was to forget, so you wouldn't be next? That night, for the first time in weeks, the wind is still. The air feels like it's waiting. You lie by the fire, staring at the faint embers, and imagine the sun rising again. Not just a smear of gold, but rising, full, warm, real. But deep down, something cold and ancient whispers in your ear. Not yet. You notice it first in the smell. That sour, metallic tang that doesn't belong to wood smoke or mead or unwashed skin. It slips under your nose one morning as you roll out of your bedding, and it grabs hold of your stomach like a fist. Not strong at first, just enough to make you pause. You sniff the air. Someone else smells it too. Your cousin, the quiet one with the long fingers and nervous eyes, is already rubbing pine resin under his nose like a priest warding off rot. Then comes the coughing, not your uncle's. His ended the night he walked into the snow and never came back. No, this is new. Wet, phlegmy, ragged. It belongs to the youngest in the longhouse now, your little brother. It starts with a wheeze, and by evening he sounds like he's been swallowing frost. Your mother tries herbs, crushed juniper, bits of dried angelica, some waxy roots she's had stored since the summer markets. She boils them into a foul-smelling tea and presses it to his lips. He drinks without complaint, too tired to argue. His eyes are glassy. His skin feels like old paper. He'll be fine, your mother says, but her voice is thin. You've heard of midwinter sickness before. It comes when the snow begins to turn, not melt, just change. Gritty, slushy, like it's starting to give up. They say the sickness rides in through the cracks, piggybacking on Thor. One day it's coughs, the next it's fever dreams and a body too heavy to move. The fire doesn't help. If anything, it makes things worse. The heat thickens the air, curling the sickness around the longhouse like smoke. Someone throws wet moss on the fire to kill the stench. It doesn't work. By morning, 2 others are coughing. The dog won't come near them. You've seen what happens when sickness moves unchecked. Last winter, a family 3 houses down was reduced to 1 old man by spring. He sat outside for days after the snow melted, staring at the empty place where his door used to be, and mumbling to himself about shadows that stood too still. No one wants to be that man. Your father decides to bring in a healer. Not from your village. There's no one left here you'd trust with more than a goat blister. Instead, he takes your cousin and heads across the ridge, toward the next valley, toward her, the Völva. You've never seen her, but the stories have kept her face alive in your mind for years. Wild hair, eyes clouded with smoke, a staff carved with runes so old even the gods forgot them. Some say she used to live in the court of a jarl. Others say she was never really alive to begin with. Either way, she's the one you call when death shows up early. Your father and cousin return 3 days later. Not alone. They walk ahead of her, not beside. That's how you know they're afraid. She's tall, bone-thin, wrapped in a cloak of stitched feathers and broken antler tips that clack when she moves. Her face is hidden behind a veil of woven horsehair. You never see her eyes, but you feel them. She steps into the longhouse like it already belongs to her. Your mother bows. Everyone does, even the dog. She says nothing at first. Just walks the length of the house, her bare feet never leaving a print in the dirt. She stops at your brother's bed and kneels, places one hand on his chest, then another on his forehead. She whispers something, and he stops coughing, just like that. Not cured, but quiet. Everyone exhales at once. That night she casts the runes. You watch from the corner as she lays out bones and chips of carved wood in the ashes of the hearth. She mutters in a tongue you don't recognize, something older than even the sagas your grandfather used to tell. Her hands move like smoke. Her staff never leaves her side. She asks no questions, takes no food. After the 3rd cast, she leans close to the embers and spits. Then she speaks. This house is full. Your father frowns. Full of what? She doesn't answer. Just stands and begins tying charms to the rafters. Bits of fur, feather, carved bone, and what looks like a child's tooth. You don't ask where she got it. She sprinkles ash in a ring around your brother's bed and carves a rune into the firestone. You don't recognize the shape. It shifts every time you blink, like it's not meant to be looked at head on. This will hold, she says, but she doesn't sound convinced. That night, your brother sleeps without coughing, but you dream. You dream of the longhouse empty and buried in snow, nothing left but smoke rising from a chimney that no longer exists. You walk through it alone, the air thick and wrong, and when you pass your brother's bed, you see him lying there, mouth open, eyes wide, something small and black curled up under his tongue like a beetle. When you wake, you're drenched in sweat. Your brother is still asleep, but his breath smells like metal. The Völva stays another night. She doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, just sits by the fire and whispers to it. Sometimes it answers, sparks dancing in rhythm with her voice, a log splitting at just the right word. She watches it like it's telling her a story. And maybe it is. By morning she's gone, no one sees her leave, just a trail of feathers in the snow leading toward the trees, and one less charm hanging above the hearth. Your brother improves over the next few days, though he barely speaks. His eyes are sharp, but his voice is soft. He eats, drinks, walks, but he never sings anymore. And one night, when you pass his bed, you hear him muttering in his sleep. Not words, sounds, the same language the Völva used, the one no one taught him. Modern anthropologists speculate that healers like the Völva were part medicine woman, part spiritual negotiator. Trained in herbs, yes, but also in ritual, dream reading, death bargaining, Some say they were feared even by kings, others say they were frauds who profited off fear. But no one argues their presence meant something. Whether you believed or not, they left marks behind, in your case, literal ones. Because the rune she carved into the firestone, it doesn't go away. You try scrubbing it with snow, it darkens. You try smearing soot over it, it glows faintly red. Only when left alone does it stay quiet. A week passes, the sickness doesn't spread, the coughing stops, the howling fades, but the fire behaves differently now. It bends strangely to the left, and once, while you're alone, it whispers your name, not the one your family calls you, the old one, the one your grandmother used to whisper when she thought no one was listening. Food begins to run out just after your brother takes his first steps again. You'd almost forgotten that this winter had to be fed too, that beyond the sickness and the dreams and the noises in the trees, there's still the slow, grinding truth of hunger. The root cellar is empty now. The last of the pickled turnips were gone days ago, and the dried berries vanished sometime around the solstice. The bread, brittle and grey, turned to dust in your mouth, and the dried meat, whatever was left, was fed to your brother when he couldn't keep anything else down. Now it's bark and broth. The broth's made from old bones boiled so long they nearly vanish. The bark is peeled from trees not too close to the longhouse, those are for firewood, but from the stunted pines down in the hollow, where the snow never really settles. The bark gets dried, crushed, mashed into something resembling flour, then baked into what your aunt calls bark cakes. You chew them for the idea of food. The taste is sour, your teeth hurt after, but they fill your stomach just enough that you don't dream about chewing on your own arm. You try to make jokes about it. You tell your cousin it's probably what the gods eat when they're feeling humble. He doesn't laugh. He hasn't laughed in days. None of you have. The fire's smaller now, the woodpile's dwindling, and even though you spend hours outside each day with an axe and a sled, it's not enough. The deeper you go into the forest, the harder it is to find dry wood. Everything's frozen solid. The trees groan when you cut into them, like they're complaining. Once, you swear you heard one whisper your name before it split. You don't tell anyone that. The world shrinks when the food disappears, not just physically, but mentally. You can feel your thoughts getting slower, thinner, like they're stretched across too many days. You forget things, names, times, even why you stood up in the first place. You'll go to fetch snow and find yourself at the door with no idea how you got there. Once, your mother catches you stirring an empty pot for 20 minutes, eyes blank. It's not just you. Your cousin left the meat knife outside and spent the better part of an hour searching for it. Inside the house. Your aunt accidentally tried to boil her own mitten. She cried when someone pointed it out. It's like the hunger is peeling pieces of you away. And not just your minds, your bones are showing. Ribs like old fence posts, hands like claws. Your brother's cheeks are hollow, his eyes sunk back into his skull like someone scooped them deeper. And yet, somehow the fire still burns, still leans left, still whispers when you least expect it. One afternoon, while out gathering pine branches for tea, you stumble across a clearing that wasn't there before. It's just past the ridge, behind a line of half-dead birch trees. The snow here is strangely shallow, and the light, what little there is, feels brighter. In the middle of the clearing stands a massive animal, an elk, or something that used to be one. It's too tall, the legs too long, the antlers curved not up but down, almost cradling its own chest. It doesn't move when you approach, doesn't blink, just breathes. A thick steam rolls off it like mist. It smells like blood and mint and something sharper underneath. Metal, maybe. You grip your axe, and then it speaks, not in words, not in sound, just something enters your head. A feeling, a question. Are you ready to trade? You don't answer. You back away slowly, shaking, hands slick with sweat despite the cold. When you return to the longhouse, your boots are soaked and your mouth is full of pine needles. You don't remember chewing them. You tell no one. The next day, your cousin disappears. Not the sick one, not the old one, the strong one, the one who carried the water and split the wood and made sure the dog ate before he did. Gone. Door never opened. No tracks in the snow, just his axe left by the fire, still warm when you find it. Maybe he went to hunt, your mother says. Maybe he found something better, your father mutters. Neither of them believe it. There's a silence in the house that wasn't there before, not the usual winter hush. This is sharper, like the house itself is listening, waiting for someone to say the wrong thing. You all eat in silence, drink in silence, sleep in silence, and still, every night someone new starts whispering in their sleep. Your brother again, your aunt, once even you. You wake up with a mouthful of strange words and a rune carved into your forearm, faint, like it was drawn with soot and sweat. You wash it off before anyone sees, but it itches for days. One night, your father admits what you've all been thinking. We're not going to make it. Just like that. No drama, no collapse, just fact. He stares into the fire, hands clasped, jaw clenched. We've used up everything we have. The next time someone disappears, maybe we don't look so hard. Your mother flinches. No one disagrees. Scholars speculate that during the hardest Viking winters, when the sun was gone too long and food too scarce, families sometimes made choices. Quiet ones, terrible ones, the kind no one carved into wood or spoke of again. They call it pragmatic famine response. You know what it really means. It means hunger has a voice, and eventually everyone listens. The day after your cousin vanishes, the fire burns brighter than it has in weeks. The pot boils faster. Your brother smiles, and no one asks why. No one asks where the extra broth came from, or why the meat tastes different. Your mother says it's seal. You didn't have any seal, but no one asks. No one wants the answer. Later that night, when the others are asleep, you step outside into the freezing dark. The sky pulses green and white above you, the northern lights rippling like gods dancing behind a curtain, and you hear it again, the elk breathing, waiting. Are you ready to trade? This time, you answer. Yes. The next morning you wake with ice in your eyelashes and blood on your palm. Not a lot, just a thin smear, like you scraped it on something in a dream. But when you sit up and look at your hand, the blood has dried into a symbol, a crude, looping knot, the kind your grandfather used to etch into the side of his boat for luck. Except this one has too many points, too many twists. The lines don't connect right, like someone tried to draw it from memory and got it half wrong. You wash it off in melted snow, scrubbing hard enough to sting, but you don't forget it. That day your father announces that weapons will be carried indoors at all times. Not for people, he says, just in case. He doesn't explain what in case means. He doesn't have to. Everyone feels it now. That slow pressure building in the air like something's about to crack. There's less firewood than there should be. The wall by the back corner creaks too often, like someone's leaning on it from the outside. And the meat? There's meat again. Enough to feed everyone. But no one remembers a hunt. And no one saw your aunt's husband leave. He just isn't here anymore. Your aunt stirs the soup and smiles. That evening, as the fire dies to embers, your cousin pulls out 2 carved sticks and challenges your brother to a duel. Not a real one, not with blades. These are play weapons, rounded at the ends, meant for practicing strikes and holds. But tonight, the air around them feels charged, like the sparks from the fire have crawled into their arms. The fight starts slow, taps, feints, laughter even. But then it shifts. A strike lands too hard, your brother staggers. Someone cheers, then another hit, this one to the ribs. The sticks clash. Your cousin grins, eyes wide, face red from effort or something deeper. Your brother swings wild and catches him across the shoulder. The sound echoes, crack, not of stick on flesh, but of something splintering deep. Your cousin drops his weapon, stares at your brother, bleeding from the lip now. No one moves. Then your father rises, steps between them, and breaks both sticks across his knee. That's enough. It is, for now. That night, your brother pulls you aside. His face is pale, lips trembling. I didn't mean to hit him that hard, he says. You nod. I felt different, like something wanted to win for me. You ask what he means, but he doesn't answer, just turns away and pulls his furs tight. The next morning, someone finds the practice sticks near the hearth. The broken halves have been sharpened to points. Not tools, not toys, weapons. You look around, no one claims them. Later, while gathering snow to melt, you spot something behind the woodshed. A pile of snow kicked in like something was buried hastily. You dig, You find bones, stripped clean, cracked open at the joints. They don't belong to an animal. You cover them quickly and walk back to the house with your arms shaking. You don't tell anyone, and not yet. Inside, the longhouse feels different, heavier. The fire burns low and flickers toward the back wall again. It's always the back wall, the one that creaks in the wind, the one your sister pointed to in your dream. You ask your father if he ever rebuilt it. He looks at you blankly. What wall? That night, someone knocks on the door, 3 times. Everyone freezes. Your father rises with his spear. You hold your breath. No one opens it. The dog whines. The knocking doesn't come again. Just 3 taps. Deliberate. Confident. The next morning, a spearhead is found stuck in the snow outside, not one of yours. And now people talk of protection again. Charms are hung. Ash circles are redrawn. More meat is found. No one asks from where. Your cousin's eye is swelling from the stick duel. Your aunt's voice has gone hoarse from chanting charms. Your brother walks in his sleep now, barefoot through the house, muttering in that old language you thought he'd forgotten. Once you wake to find him standing beside the hearth, eyes closed, arms lifted like he's praying. The fire flickers toward him, then leans back like it's bowing. You don't wake him. There's a story the Scald once told, before the solstice, before the sickness, before the offerings. He said that in ancient times, when food ran out and tempers flared, some Viking clans would hold contests, not just for honour, not even for sport, but for release. The weakest could challenge the strongest. If they won, they got the last of the meat, the warmest spot by the fire. If they lost, well, there was meat either way. You'd laughed when he said it. He didn't, and now you wonder. You wonder who's next. Because it's clear now. There's something in the longhouse. Not a ghost, not a god. Something in between. It likes the dark. It likes the fire. It likes the fighting. It wants more of all 3. That night the tension finally breaks. Your cousin, the one your brother fought, throws a bone across the room. It hits your brother in the side of the head. Your brother doesn't flinch, just stands, walks to the hearth, and it pulls one of the sharpened sticks from behind the logs and smiles. The fight is over in seconds. Not lethal, not yet, but blood's drawn. Screams echo. The fire flares, and the back wall groans. Your father separates them, barely. Your mother sobs into her hands. Your brother's hand is still clenched around the stick hours later, even in sleep. When dawn comes, what passes for it, you go outside to think, to breathe, to get away from the pressure of the air inside, and you see it. Carved into the side of the longhouse, a figure, crude, almost childish. A man, arms too long, eyes too wide, antlers, and a mouthful of teeth. You ask your father if he did it. He doesn't answer. No one will. And when you blink, it's gone. Just wood and frost. But in the snow below you see footprints, deep, barefoot, and 2 narrow tracks from a dragged axe. You go back inside, and the fire leans left again, and you wonder if this is what winter wants. Not silence, not survival, just violence. The runes come back overnight. You wake before the fire's lit, the longhouse still cloaked in that heavy black hush before movement begins. Your joints ache. The straw beneath you feels like bone, brittle and full of splinters. You stretch, blink the sleep from your eyes, and then you see them. There, on the centre beam above the hearth. Not new carvings, not drawn in soot or scratched by knives. These are burned into the wood, deep, jagged, still smoking. You climb to your feet without waking anyone and step close, craning your neck. The symbols shimmer in the firelight, not because they're glowing, it's worse than that. They move, not wildly, not openly, but just enough that your eyes can't quite catch them. Every time you look away and glance back, the shapes shift, barely. A notch that wasn't there, a loop closed that was open before. You've seen enough rune sticks in your life to know these don't follow any set pattern. They don't want to be read, they want to be seen. You wake your father. He stares up at the beam for a long time, jaw clenched, lips pressed so tight they go white. Then he takes his axe, not the wood-cutting one, the good one, and starts chopping at the beam. Chips fly, smoke curls. Your mother screams for him to stop, but he doesn't. Not until the edge is blunted and his hands are shaking. The runes, still there, not even scratched. That's when he puts the axe down, walks to the back of the longhouse and sits. Alone. Facing the wall no one likes to mention anymore. He doesn't speak the rest of the day. Your brother tells you they weren't meant for you anyway. You ask what he means. He shrugs. They're not messages. They're invitations. He smiles when he says it. Later that day, the Vulva returns. No knock, no warning. Just the smell of iron and pine, the soft clack of antlers, and the sudden pressure of something ancient standing in the doorway. She doesn't speak as she enters, just looks at the rune beam, the fire, your father, your brother. Then she says, "You've let it in." Your mother bursts into tears. Your aunt kneels like a servant. The others don't move. The Vulva walks slowly to the hearth, places her staff beside it, and lowers herself to the ground. She places both hands on the earth. "It's still hungry," she whispers. Your father finally speaks, his voice dry as frost. "We've given it enough." The Vulva doesn't look up, just says flatly no. Then she lifts her right hand and drives her fingers into the fire. Not around it, into it. The flames don't burn her. They rise and twist, wrapping around her wrist like a snake. You watch in awe as the fire turns blue, then white, then colourless, like a window opened into another world. From within, something blinks. Once, a long, slow blink. 2 eyelids moving sideways, then gone. The fire snaps back to orange. The Vulva pulls her hand out, blackened but unburned. She looks at you, not your father, not your brother. You. "You bargained," she says. You shake your head. "No words," she agrees, "but your hunger spoke louder." You don't deny it. You can't, because she's right. That night, she casts the bones again. Not in ash, but in blood. Your cousin's, from where he cut his hand on the chopping block. Just a drop. The bones rattle across the dirt, scattering like teeth. She stares at them, then at your brother, then at the back wall. "The doorway's open," she says. "Your father demands to know what doorway." She gestures toward the fire, toward the darkness just beyond the reach of the light. The one you invited. There's an old tale about a king who went mad one winter. His halls grew so cold that the fire refused to burn no matter how much he fed it. He made offerings, meat, gold, even his favourite hound. Nothing worked. So he whispered a deal into the coals. "Let the fire live, and I will give you my name." The fire roared back to life, and in the spring, when his people returned to the castle, they found the king's cloak by the hearth, perfectly folded, but no sign of the king, not even ash. The Vulva tells this story as she feeds herbs into the fire. No one laughs, no one speaks. Just the sound of her staff tapping the stone and the occasional wheeze from your brother's chest. When she finishes, she turns to the fire again and draws a rune in the soot beside it. This one is different. Smaller, balanced, stable. And when she speaks it aloud, something in your head clicks, like a lock turning. You don't know what it does, but you feel safer, for now. The next morning, the wind changes. It doesn't blow hard, it just smells different. Like wet stone and old leaves. The snow outside is softer, the clouds are thinner, and in the far, far distance you hear a sound you haven't heard in over a month. A raven, calling once, twice, 3 times. The Vulva nods when she hears it. They're watching again. You ask who she means. She taps the roof beam with her staff. The old gods, not the hungry ones, the real ones. You ask what that means, but she's already walking away. Your brother sits by the fire all day, drawing in the ash with his fingers. He won't speak, won't eat, just draws the same shape over and over, the rune you woke up with. When you try to stop him, he grabs your wrist hard. His eyes have gone black. Not all black, just the pupils wide and endless. "You can't unlight a fire," he says, "then let's go." That night, someone breaks the back wall. Not completely, just a small hole, big enough for light to leak out or for eyes to peer in. No one heard it happen. But the sound of the wind changes again, like it's breathing, and someone, laughs, low, right behind the wall. The Vulva doesn't come back, but the rune she left stays, glowing faintly, holding just barely. You try to copy it, but every time you finish, your hand cramps. The lines curl wrong, the ink runs, so you try again and again and again. The fire leans right now, toward the wall, toward the rune, toward the thing that's waiting. It wants you to open the door the rest of the way, to strike first, to feed it something new, and the worst part of you wants to. It starts with the lights in the sky. You step outside one night, only for a moment just to relieve yourself in the snow pit near the edge of the longhouse, and there they are, the aurora, a shimmering curtain of green and violet trailing across the sky like the veil of a goddess moving too quickly to be seen. You've seen the northern lights before, of course. They're common enough, even in normal winters, but this is different. This time they move. They don't just hang overhead. They twist and flicker in rhythm, pulsing to a beat you can feel in your ribs. They snake downward, low enough to touch the tops of the trees. You think you see shapes in them, humanoid, flickering, sparring with long spears and braided hair, like ghosts of warriors mid-battle. One figure seems to leap from tree to tree in a red flash. Another kneels, arms outstretched. A third, the largest, seems to stand still watching you. Not moving, not fading, and just staring. You stumble backward into the snow, breath puffing in front of you like smoke. The lights flicker in response. For just a heartbeat, the entire sky turns white, blinding before shifting back to green. And the sound, that low hum like singing from the inside of a horn, rings in your ears until your teeth hurt. You don't tell anyone what you saw, but the next morning when your father goes to chop wood, he comes back pale. "There's something in the sky," he says, "and I think it's looking for someone." There's a legend, you remember, half-formed from childhood. The lights are the shields of the Valkyries, the warrior maidens of Odin, riding across the sky to choose who dies in battle. A good omen, your grandfather said. It meant the gods were paying attention, that glory was near. But others, quiet, older voices, say differently. They say the aurora is made from the breath of the slain, that when the dead whisper to each other, it rises up, coloured by memory and blood, dancing overhead like smoke from a funeral pyre. And they say, if you see your own face in the lights, it means your soul has already left your body. That night, you don't go outside. Inside the longhouse, things continue to unravel. The meat's gone again. No one admits to eating it. The dog's vanished. Your aunt claims she saw it follow something out the door, a figure in white, with a bone mask and antlers. No one believes her, but no one argues either. Your brother hasn't spoken in 2 days. He just draws symbols in the soot and lines them with bits of bone, small pieces from the soup pot, whittled smooth. When your father tries to throw them into the fire, they won't burn. They sit in the flames like stones, untouched, as if the heat respects them. Your mother whispers prayers now, not to Odin or Freya or Thor, but to names you've never heard before. Names with too many syllables, names that sound more like weather than language. The air in the house is heavy with them. Every breath feels like it carries weight, like you're inhaling dust from ancient bones. The Völva hasn't returned. Her rune still glows faintly by the hearth, but even that seems weaker now, like it's running out of time or interest. The fire burns unevenly, leaning first toward the front of the house, then twisting left, then right, like it's sniffing the air. You catch yourself watching it too long, seeing shapes in the flame, a hand, a mouth, a long spiral eye. You blink, and it's just fire again, but the image stays with you, burned into your eyelids like an afterglow. Your father tries to rally everyone. He says we'll make it to spring. He says we just need 2 more weeks. But his voice is dry, cracked, and when he sleeps with his axe across his chest. You all do. That night, the lights come back. This time, they're closer, low enough to cast shadows inside the longhouse through cracks in the walls. They swirl above the roof like a crown, and with them comes the humming, louder, stronger, like a chant you can't quite make out. Everyone freezes in place, breath caught, as if moving would invite attention. And then the fire leaps higher than it ever has, blue-white, nearly silent. Your brother stands up. He walks slowly to the centre of the room and lifts his arms. The fire leans toward him, and the lights shift colour. From green to red, the singing stops. Just like that. No one breathes. Your mother drops to her knees, eyes squeezed shut. Your cousin whispers, "He's calling them." You don't know who them is, but you believe it. The next morning the fire's cold, the ashes untouched, and in the middle of the hearth someone or something has drawn a rune using the tip of a charred bone. Not the vulva's rune, not yours. This one is new, and it's angry. You try to clean it, but your hand freezes when you reach toward it. Literally. Your fingers go numb instantly. Ice crawls up your arm like smoke in reverse. You pull back and fall, gasping, and you hear it. A voice, right next to your ear. You called us. Modern scientists chalk auroral sightings up to particles and magnetic fields. Harmless, pretty. But in ancient texts, in sagas that survived the flames, there are warnings. Descriptions of auroras that came too low. That lingered. That whispered names. One text, preserved on a lambskin scroll barely legible now, describes the lights as the waving breath of those still fighting in death. Another warns never to stare into them too long, because sometimes the lights stare back. Later that evening you build a small fire outside. Just you, a few twigs, a few bones, a piece of your boot you cut off. You draw the rune you saw in the sky, the angry one, the one in the fire, you don't know why, you just do, and when the flames catch they burn red. The colour of meat, the colour of warning, the colour of war. Your brother joins you. He doesn't speak. He sits beside you, draws the same symbol in the snow, then leans close to the fire, whispers something into it, something in that old language, and you swear, just for a moment, the fire listens. The flame bows, flickers once, and answers. A single spark rises and forms a face. Not his, not yours, someone else, someone waiting. And then it's gone, and you both sit in the dark beside a fire you no longer understand, while above you the sky dances in blood and jade, and the old gods wait for your next move. It's sometime around the 15th or 16th week of darkness, by your best guess, when the ice begins to speak. You hear it first one night while drawing water from the stream that used to run free beside the longhouse. Now it's just a thick frozen ribbon, coiled between stones and buried beneath layers of snow. You dig down with your axe and press your ear to the surface, checking for the familiar cracks and murmurs of shifting frost, but instead you hear something else. A low groan, rhythmic, not wind, not water, something slower, like breathing. You stand there for a while, listening, the cold creeping into your knees. The ice exhales again, long, low, followed by a distant knocking sound that echoes through the frozen ground like footsteps. You back away slowly. You don't fill the water bucket that night. The next morning, the frost inside the longhouse is different. It's not clustered in random patches like it used to be. Now it forms lines, spirals, loops, and sharp angles etched in white across the walls and support beams. You try to wipe one away with your sleeve, but it resists, like it's part of the wood itself. The pattern is familiar. You've seen it before, in the vulva's bones, in your brother's drawings, and worst of all, in your own dreams. You find your father staring at one of the frost spirals. He doesn't speak, just traces it with a calloused finger, over and over, like he's trying to remember something. What do they mean? You ask. He looks at you, eyes bloodshot. I think it's the way home. You want to ask, home for who? But he's already gone back to his seat by the fire. That same day, the dog returns. Or something that was the dog. You hear scratching at the door around midday, not frantic, slow, deliberate. When your cousin opens it, the cold rushes in like a scream, and there it is, standing in the snow, its fur frozen stiff, its eyes milky white. It's thinner than before, ribs pressing through its skin like blades, but it walks inside without hesitation, tail low, nose lifted as if it's smelling for a place it remembers. Your mother offers it a scrap of bark bread. It doesn't move. Your brother kneels, makes the sign of the runes in front of it. The dog blinks, slowly, then lays down by the fire and closes its eyes. It hasn't moved since. The ice continues to groan at night, not just beneath the stream, but in the walls, in the beams, even in the air itself. You begin to feel it in your teeth, a subtle vibration, as if the house is caught between two great stones grinding together. Sometimes you wake to find your own fingernails cracked down the middle. You feel pressure in your ears that won't go away. Your mother says, "It's just the weather," but she doesn't look at you when she says it. Then come the dreams, not strange or cryptic like before. These are vivid, painfully vivid. You dream of waking up and finding the house empty, the fire still burning, but every bed rolled tight and empty. You walk outside, it's snowing ash, and the sky is filled with runes, huge burning symbols written in flame across the stars. You kneel to touch the snow, but it's not snow at all. It's fine white bone. The trees are on fire, the stream is black, and in the centre of the village stands a tall figure. You've seen it before, the antlers, the long arms, the empty face. It lifts one finger and points at you, and you wake, mouth full of ice. You're not alone. Your brother's been sleepwalking again. Now, instead of muttering, he sings. Just one note, over and over. A high, keening tone that makes the fire flicker, and the others shift uneasily in their beds. Once he stood at the back wall for over an hour, pressing his forehead to the wood, humming into the darkness. Your father finally dragged him away. When he did, your brother bit him. Hard, didn't apologise, didn't remember it the next day. Outside, the snow begins to melt. Not fast, not evenly. Just slow. Weeping drips down the side of the longhouse. You find patches of grass poking through the ice. Not green, black. The trees begin to groan, like they're waking up. Modern climatologists studying Viking settlement collapse love to talk about things like abrupt temperature fluctuations and famine tipping points. They say the winters lengthen just enough to break communities in half, but what they don't explain is how people felt when the rivers began to crack and weep. How they reacted when the fire wouldn't burn straight and the walls started to whisper. How they responded when their own kin spoke with other voices. Because that's what happens next. Your cousin, once quiet, always steady, starts laughing in the middle of the night. Not a giggle, a cackle, loud, chest deep, utterly wrong. You try to wake him, but he shoves you back with unnatural strength. His eyes are wide open, and he says, "They're coming through now." He says the ice broke because it heard you ask. And then he howls. A long, drawn-out note that matches your brother's song. The others wake. Your father grabs a blade, but your cousin's already asleep again, smiling. The next day, the stream is running. Not fully, just a trickle. Thin and dark and fast. You kneel beside it and drink. It tastes like iron and something else. Ash. That night the Volva's rune over the fire turns black. Just for a moment. But long enough for the fire to snuff itself out. You have to relight it with kindling from outside. And when it comes back, the flame burns upside down and no one says a word. You remember a story once told in whispers about a village not far from yours. They called it Cheldon, a fishing hamlet halfway up the coast. One winter, the fjord froze so deep the fish vanished, the boats iced to the sand. They say the villagers dug down into the frozen bay trying to find something, anything to eat. Instead, they found a cave, beneath the ice, a cave that breathed. Only one man survived, and he never spoke again. That morning you find your brother outside, standing on the ice, barefoot. He's humming again, and beneath his feet the ice is cracking, not fast, but steadily, like something below is listening and smiling and coming up. You call his name. He turns, eyes black, teeth chattering, and he says, "The crack is a mouth." Then he steps aside, and the ice beneath him breaks, and he's gone. You run, you scream, you dig with bare hands, but there's no hole, no water, just smooth, untouched frost, like he was never there at all. That night you sit by the fire alone. Your father hasn't spoken, your mother won't move, the others just stare at the wall, and outside the stream is louder now, too loud. It sounds like chanting. The ice is cracking, and so are you. It begins with the prints, huge misshapen tracks in the snow near the goat altar. 4 toes, wide splayed pads, and claw marks the length of your forearm. Not wolf, not bear, and definitely not human. You spot them just after dawn, if you can call the pale, muddy light seeping over the hills dawn anymore. You're outside checking the traps you and your father set for hares days ago, even though you both know nothing's left alive to catch. It's more routine now than hope, a ritual. One more thing to do to prove you're still a person, and not just a body waiting to go numb. You find the tracks beside a snapped sapling, its branches twisted and peeled like something chewed them absent-mindedly. The prints lead toward the edge of the forest and then vanish. No trail in, no trail out, just a loop of horror pressed into the snow and then gone. Your father kneels beside them, eyes narrowed. He touches the edge of one and draws his hand back immediately. Frostbite? No. Something else. Like the cold in that track bites. They're not deep enough, he says under his breath. Something that big should have sunk farther. You both say nothing after that. Not because there's nothing to say, but because every word feels like permission. Like acknowledgement. And acknowledgement is invitation. You head back to the longhouse, but you keep checking over your shoulder. Not for wolves, not for raiders, for whatever made those tracks, whatever was walking on snow like it was stone. That night, the longhouse is restless. The air inside is too still, the kind of stillness you only notice when something is missing, like a heartbeat you didn't realize you'd been listening for. Your father brings the last of the dried pine cones inside, cracks them open one by one over the fire, coaxing out what little pitch remains. The smell is acrid and sweet, and somehow wrong now. It reminds you of the Skald's cloak, of the Völva's feathers, of sap bleeding from trees that whisper. You catch yourself staring at the back wall again. It creaks now, constantly. Not in response to wind, not even in rhythm, just whenever it wants. The sounds aren't like before. They aren't moans or groans or the strain of cold wood. They're footsteps, soft measured, from inside the wall, like someone walking very slowly back and forth. You don't tell anyone. You think they hear it too, but no one wants to be the first to speak it aloud. Instead, your aunt sharpens the bone knives again, her fingers moving with a strange calm. She hasn't spoken since the dog came back, and then stopped moving entirely. You think she believes you'll need the knives soon, but not for cutting meat. 2 nights later, you wake to the sound of something scratching just beneath the house. Not mice. You've heard mice. This is larger, closer testing. You press your ear to the floorboards and hear something breathing beneath you. Slow, heavy, like a bear, but wrong. There's a wetness to the sound, like lungs that shouldn't work are trying anyway. You sit up and look around. Your cousin is awake too, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. He whispers, "It came back." You whisper, "What did?" He says, "Whatever we fed." The fire won't light properly the next morning. Your father blows until he's red-faced. You strike spark after spark, but the kindling won't catch. Finally, your mother tosses in a bit of her braid, clipped in silence, her eyes dull. The flame takes, but it burns green for a few seconds before shifting back to orange. You all pretend that didn't happen. You venture outside alone the next afternoon, following those strange tracks again. They're back, new this time, circling the house, closer than before. One set loops directly past the firewood stack, another stops right at the door. You crouch low and examine the snow, but there's something strange about the print itself. It's not just a shape, it's an impression. Like the snow wasn't stepped on but melted into form. The edges are smooth, the centre glistens, and deep at the bottom you see something move. Just a flicker, a twitch, a small worm-like thread of black ice curling under the surface. You take a step back. You go inside and tell no one. You pretend you didn't see anything, because you're starting to understand attention is permission. There's an old tale, one whispered among traders who wintered too far north. They spoke of scrimsel, beings of frost and shadow that slept beneath the snow until the ground forgot the sun. Not quite giants, not quite spirits, but something that wore forms borrowed from nightmares, beasts made of wind and teeth, walking on snow without disturbing it. When food ran out, they came sniffing, not for meat, but for suffering. You thought it was a joke, or maybe a story meant to keep children close to the fire. But that was before the tracks, before the melting prints, before the scratching under your bed. That night something wakes you. Not sound, not movement, just the feeling of being watched. You sit up. Everyone else is asleep, or pretending to be. The fire is low, the air is heavy, and from the far corner where the back wall warps inward now like it's sagging under invisible weight, you hear breathing. Loud, deep, just once, in, out, and then a voice. Soft, too soft, almost like your sister's. Almost. It says, "Do you want to be warm again?" You don't move, you don't blink, but you know that if you answer, even inside your own head, it will hear. So you bite your tongue and stay quiet, and the presence lingers for a moment, then retreats. Back behind the wall, back under the house, back into the snow. By morning, the fire is strong again. Everyone eats, everyone speaks. For the first time in days, someone makes a joke, and for the first time, you don't smile. Because you know now. Something woke up beneath the snow, and it's watching, and waiting, and hungry. You gather weapons, not iron, not steel, but ice. You begin shaping shards of frozen stream water into blades. Long, narrow, jagged. You don't know why. You just know that whatever's out there, whatever's in here, won't bleed. It will crack. It will shatter, if you're lucky. The prints come back the next night, but this time they come in pairs. A second set and smaller, human, barefoot. You follow them to the tree line and find a bundle of furs, your brother's. Inside, something wrapped in bone-white skin. Still warm, still breathing, still smiling. You carry the bundle back inside without thinking. It's instinct, a reflex burned into you from years of winter survival. If something's small, still warm, still breathing, you protect it. That's what the longhouse is for. Shelter. Safety. But when you unwrap the furs by the hearth, your stomach drops. It's not your brother, it's a man. Or something wearing a man. He's thin to the point of breaking, skin waxy and stretched tight over bones. His hair is a frost-burned tangle, his beard stiff with ice, his eyes sunken but very much awake. They glitter like glass in firelight, sharp and empty all at once. His lips move without sound at first, like he's trying to remember how language works. Then a dry, cracked whisper escapes. "I found it." He shivers violently, his hands clenching at invisible shapes in the air. His fingernails are black. His breath smells like iron and pine. Your father crouches low beside him. "Who are you?" The man smiles. His teeth are small and pointed. "The trader," he says. "You thought I was gone." And you do remember him vaguely. A summer visitor, always with a pack full of shiny things. Foreign salt, bits of coloured glass, coins stamped with strange faces. He vanished at sea months ago, everyone sure he'd been claimed by winter or waves. But here he is, changed. You offer him a bowl of broth. He takes it but doesn't drink, just holds it between his hands like it's a story he's forgotten. His eyes dart around the room, over the rune above the fire, the frost spirals on the beams, the place where the wall has started to bow inward. His lips twitch. "They're closer than you think," he says. "I walked the fjord. All the way across. I saw them under the ice." Your cousin snorts. "What did you see?" "Fish." The trader's eyes snap to him, sharp and bright. "Mouths," he says. "Too many. Too wide. And hands. They pull. They wait." You feel the room stiffen, even the fire leaning toward him as if listening. "What did you trade?" your aunt asks quietly. The man smiles again. It's not a nice smile. "My warmth," he says. "And now I can't get cold. I can't." He sets the bowl down untouched, and you realize he's not shivering anymore. That night he sits by the fire but never closes his eyes. His head jerks at small sounds like a predator's, and every now and then he mutters phrases under his breath. Not words you know, not the vulvar's language either, something harsher, broken. You lie awake pretending to sleep, watching him. At one point he stands and walks to the back wall, pressing his palm against the wood where it bows inward. He leans close, whispering. The wall seems to pulse under his hand. You almost call out, but you don't. When he sits back down, his palm leaves a dark print behind, like soot, but it's frost. "Your father wants him gone. He's not one of us," he mutters in the morning. But your mother says, "We can't send him out there. Not now." The man, this trader, just smiles. "I won't leave," he says. "I'm waiting." "For what?" you ask. His eyes meet yours. "For the door to open." From then on, the atmosphere in the longhouse changes again. The fire burns hotter, too hot, like it's angry. The frost spirals on the beams shift faster. You catch glimpses of them moving now, tiny twitches at the edge of sight. The dog, what's left of it, keeps its head low, ears flat, tail curled tight. Your brother hums more often, that same high note. Sometimes the trader hums with him, a harmony that makes your teeth hurt. At night you dream of walking on the fjord. This time you're not alone. The trader walks beside you, barefoot, leaving no prints. He carries a bundle under his arm. You ask what's inside. He says, "A promise." And you wake with a piece of ice clenched in your fist. By the third day he starts to tell stories, not sagas, not even warnings, just fragments. "I saw a village swallowed whole," he murmurs while sharpening a shard of bone into a point. "They fed the fire. The fire fed them back. Now they live inside it." Another time, while staring at the ceiling, names are doors. That's why they take them first. And once, looking directly at you, "If you see the sun before the hunt rides home, don't look at it. It's not yours. No one asks him to explain." There's debate among modern historians about returners, men and women who vanished in winter only to reappear changed, claiming visions or bargains. Some scholars dismiss them as wanderers broken by hunger and frostbite. Others see them as walking evidence of shamanic ritual, people who crossed into the hidden world and came back half other. There are even carvings, small, crude figurines, depicting emaciated travellers with eyes painted black labelled the Uncold. You used to think those were metaphors. You don't anymore. The trader begins carving something into the floor by the hearth. You try to stop him, but his grip on your wrist is iron hard. He finishes the mark anyway. It's a circle. Inside it, a spiral. Inside that, a hand. "Step inside," he says. "You'll never be hungry again." You step back. He laughs softly, then presses his own bare foot into the mark. The frost on the wall shivers. That night, while everyone pretends to sleep, the trader stands again, walks to the back wall, presses both hands against it, and pushes. The wall groans, bows inward another inch. Snow sifts from the rafters. He whispers something, and the fire leans, not toward the wall this time, toward him. He smiles. "You'll see," he murmurs. "It's beautiful," and sits back down. When you wake, the mark he carved into the floor is glowing faintly. Your brother is gone. Again, no tracks in the snow, just a smooth impression, as if something heavy slid across the floor and out through the wall. The trader sits by the fire, eyes closed. "It took him," he says calmly, "but he's not gone. You want to hit him, scream at him, but you don't, because part of you knows he's telling the truth, and part of you, deep, hidden, knows you helped." Outside, the snow drips louder, the ice groans, and the sky above is starting to brighten. Not gold, not blue, but a pale, unnatural white. The sun is coming back. Too soon, and the trader smiles. "It's almost open," he says. The baby is born in the middle of the 23rd night of wind, or what passes for night in this never-ending dusk. It comes too early, though no one knows exactly how early. No calendars, no sun to count by, no herbalists left with soft, knowing hands. Just your aunt, hunched in a corner of the longhouse, face pale with effort, your mother at her side whispering encouragement, and everyone else pretending not to listen, pretending not to hear the screams, pretending not to see the blood. You sit by the fire, hands clenched around your knees, trying to focus on the flames. You tell yourself it's just another winter birth. They're always like this, hard, quiet, uncertain. But deep down, you know this one is different. Everyone does. For starters, no one knew your aunt was pregnant. Not until she stopped eating. Not until her skin pulled tight and her cheeks hollowed, and your cousin whispered that she was carrying something. Not someone. Something. Your father had dismissed it. Said she was grieving. Said the cold makes people swell strangely. Said it was nonsense. But when she screamed that night, high and long and sudden, no one questioned anything anymore. The fire flickers, the air thickens, and then, finally, the sound you're all dreading. Crying. Not loud, not sharp, but wet and rhythmic, like a wounded animal gasping for breath. Your mother emerges from the corner first. Her face is blank, her hands stained red to the wrists. She says, "It lived." She doesn't say, he or she, just it. Then she goes to the water bucket, dips her hands in, and starts to scrub like her skin offends her. You sneak a glance at the baby while everyone else pretends not to care. It's small, greyish, limbs too long, fingers twitching in slow, jerky pulses. Its eyes don't open, its chest moves barely. But what disturbs you most is the silence that follows. It doesn't cry again, not once, just that one mewling burst, then stillness. Even your aunt is quiet now, sleeping like a corpse under a fur that won't stay in place. The baby lies wrapped in another pelt, left close to the fire, but not too close. Watched, but from a distance. No one wants to hold it. The trader is the first to speak. "You've brought it through," he says, voice low. The door opened and it walked in. Your father shoves him, hard, sends him sprawling across the floor. The trader laughs the whole time, even with blood in his mouth. "Don't you see," he wheezes, "it's not a curse, it's a key." You throw him out that night, drag him by the arms and toss him into the snow. He doesn't resist, doesn't even blink against the wind. "I'll wait," he says. "I always do." He turns and walks into the trees. You watch him go, heart pounding, then return to the fire where the baby has not moved. Your aunt wakes on the third day after the birth. She doesn't ask about the child, doesn't look at it, doesn't name it. She drinks broth slowly, like every swallow is a decision. When asked if she wants to hold her son or daughter, no one's sure. She says only, "It came from a dream." That's all, just that. The child doesn't grow, doesn't cry, doesn't sleep either. It just stares now, silent and wide-eyed, into nothing. Its gaze never wavers. You cover its face once with a fur, hoping to coax it into rest. When you pull the fur back, its eyes are still open, still staring. You think it's watching the fire, or what lives behind it. One morning, the child is gone. You panic. You shout. You tear through the longhouse and check the furs and the firewood pile and the goat stall you haven't used in weeks. Then you find it, standing, on its own, by the back wall, the bowed one hand pressed against the wood, the other hanging limp at its side. You call to it, it doesn't turn, but you swear. The wall pulses around its fingers, like breath, like welcome. That night, your cousin suggests putting the baby outside. Not to kill it, he says, just to see if it survives. Your father punches him before the sentence is finished, but no one says he's wrong. Your mother tells you quietly that she's seen the child in her dreams, that it walks through the woods, taller, older, wearing your brother's cloak, that it hums to the fire and whispers to the snow and carries a staff of bone and pine needles. That's not a child, she says. It's a seed. You don't ask what she means, because you're afraid you understand. There's a folk tale that used to circulate among coastal villages, the tale of Una's child, a woman who gave birth in the dead of winter to a child with skin like moonlight and eyes that never blinked. They buried it 3 times. It kept coming back, each time older, each time closer to something else. In the end, it wasn't her son who walked through the spring thaw, but something that remembered her name. You used to think it was about grief, a metaphor, a warning. Now you wonder if Una ever lived near here, if the child is the warning. One night, you're the only one awake. The fire is low, the others are asleep or pretending to be. The baby sits propped upright by the stones. Then it speaks. One word, in a voice that is not a child's, not even human. A single word. Soon. Then silence. The flame flinches, and so do you. The next day, your aunt takes the baby out into the woods. She doesn't tell anyone, just walks. You follow her, boots crunching softly. You lose sight of her past the ridge. But you hear something, a sound like cracking bones and flowing water. You wait, you don't go closer. When she returns, hours later, her hands are clean. She says nothing. You never see the child again. But that night the fire burns twice as hot, and the back wall sags another inch. You want to ask if she killed it, if she fed it, if she bargained, but you don't, because the look in her eyes says it wasn't hers to begin with, and never was. That night the wind doesn't howl, the snow doesn't fall, the ice beneath the house goes still, and in the silence you hear the voice again, soft, smiling. Thank you. The sky shifts colour for the first time in weeks. You notice it just after the midday meal, which, if you're being honest, is more of a hot drink made from melted bark and the broth of whatever bones were left. You're sipping it slowly, cradling the heat in your palms, when your cousin calls softly from the door. No urgency, just awe. You step out into the snow and there it is, above you, stretching across the entire horizon, the colour of bruised apricot. Not the gold of a real sun, not even the deep violet of the aurora. This is something in between, something pretending to be light. It pulses like a heartbeat. It stains the trees. And worst of all, it casts shadows. You haven't seen shadows in over 2 months, but now they're back, long, stretched thin, like they're trying to pull free from the bodies they belong to. You wave your arm, and your shadow lags a second behind, like it's forgotten how to follow you. Your father mutters, "It's not supposed to return yet." He's right. This isn't spring. It's not thaw. The air is still cold enough to make your breath crystallize, and yet, above you, something is rising. Not sun exactly, but a light that thinks it is. And with it comes the smell. It hits you slowly, like old rot left too long under snow. Sweet, but wrong. You've smelled death before, after hunts, after sickness. But this is different, older, like the rot of something that never lived at all. The trader returns that night. He doesn't knock, he doesn't speak. He just walks into the longhouse like he never left, shakes the snow off his shoulders, and sits beside the fire. His skin is darker now, not from cold, but from something underneath. A greyness, like stone soaked in oil. And when he removes his gloves, his fingertips are raw, gone, eaten away. The bones visible beneath twitch when he moves them. Still no one stops him. He sits beside the hearth and says softly, "It's awake now." You don't ask what it is, because part of you knows. The baby hasn't returned, nor your aunt's memory of it. It's as if the whole ordeal has been peeled from her. She sings now, quietly, in a language you haven't heard before, a lilting rhythmic chant. Sometimes she sings it to the fire, other times to the wall. Her eyes never quite focus on anyone. Your mother spends most days with her hands in water, not cleaning, not scrubbing, just soaking, sometimes for hours, until the skin goes pale and sloughs. She says it makes her feel clean, but the water never steams, even when it should. It stays cold, too cold, and sometimes the ice crawls back into the bucket while her hands are still inside. The fire hasn't leaned in days, not left, not right. It just burns straight up now, as if standing at attention, obedient, respectful, but not friendly. It used to offer warmth. Now it offers only heat, the kind that dries your lips and splits your nails and makes the back of your neck itch when you sit too close. One morning the ground trembles. Not a quake, not something loud, but enough to rattle the bowls on the shelf, enough to make the bones in your feet buzz, enough to wake you from the edge of a dream you weren't ready to leave. You will rush outside instinctively looking for raiders, wolves, landslides, something, but there's nothing, just that pale, aching sky. And in the east, something rising, a low hump of white mist that seems to breathe. It pulses once, twice, and then settles. No one speaks, no one needs to, because it's not mist, it's a shoulder. There are tales of the Jötnar, the frost giants, beings of mountain and ice who were here before gods had names. The sagas paint them as enemies, foes of Thor, crushed beneath Mjolnir, cast into cold lands beyond the world's edges. But there are other versions, older ones that say the giants were not enemies but reminders, of what waits when the gods fall asleep, of what crawls in when memory fades. One scroll, barely legible, preserved by monks in the far north, mentions a thing called Gleifrum, the deep hunger. Not a giant, not a god, but something in between. Not a creature with a face, but a will, an echo of cold and endless want. Your cousin says the name in his sleep 3 times. The fire flickers, the wall creaks. The woodpile is nearly gone again. You chop what you can, but everything outside is wet now. Not thawed, just damp, like it's been touched by breath. You bring in what logs remain and stack them neatly, avoiding the section of the house near the sagging wall. No one sleeps near that part anymore. Even the rats have abandoned it. You sit outside one night and look at the stars, or where the stars should be. There's a swirling above now, just behind the bruised sky. A slow-turning spiral, faint but constant. The centre of it blinks, once, twice. Each blink feels like a question you've already answered. The next day, the trader speaks again. Tonight it chooses, he says. You ask what that means. He simply grins, teeth chattering against blackened gums. You'll see. That night the sky turns blacker than you've ever seen it. No snow, no wind, no sound, just a hush. And in that hush, the longhouse begins to moan. Not creak, moan, deep, from the timbers, from the beams, from the floor. Like the structure itself has finally begun to notice what's growing inside it. Your cousin vomits blood. Your mother begins to hum the baby's song again. Your father grips his axe and kneels beside the fire, lips moving in prayer. But no God is listening, because the fire answers. A voice, clear, young and familiar. I am ready now. The wall breaks. Not in a burst, not in a collapse. It just folds, as if pushed gently from the other side. Snow pours in, not white but grey and glittering like powdered ash. Something follows, tall, thin, wrapped in furs that move without wind. It has antlers. Its face is wrapped in ice. It does not speak. But behind it, others are coming, one by one, stepping out from the trees, from the ice, from beneath the fire pit. You stare at the trader. He bows his head. They're home. You scream, but your voice sounds small, like a child calling into a canyon. And from the sky, something hums in return. That same high note your brother used to sing, the same one the baby sang before the wall cracked. Your hands are shaking, your mouth is dry. The axe at your feet gleams, the fire flickers, and your shadow, once lagging behind, now leans forward. Toward the open wall, toward the being stepping in, and toward whatever comes next. They don't rush in. That's the first thing you notice. There's no violence, no trampling, no burst of inhuman shrieking like the sagas warned about. What comes through the broken wall is patient. Tall shapes, silent. Snow clinging to their limbs, their feet not quite touching the floor. Some walk, some float. One crawls upside down across the beams, folding and unfolding its limbs like a beetle under moonlight. No faces, just masks. Some carved from wood, some from bone, one from what you swear is stitched leather. Human. All of them wear antlers, different sizes, different shapes. Too many. Your father lunges toward the hearth, axe in hand, a cry rising from his chest. But the fire leaps up between him and the visitors, throwing out a searing wall of heat so sharp it burns the edges of his tunic. He falls back, stunned, weapon clattering across the floor. They don't even glance at him. They move past. Not toward the fire, not toward you. They move toward the walls, toward the house itself. They press hands, clawed, webbed or otherwise, against the beams. One of them leans its head against a support post and breathes in, like it's smelling something deep inside the wood. Another one, smaller than the rest, lifts a finger and slowly traces a rune onto the back wall. It glows blue, then gold, then vanishes into the grain like it was always there. Your cousin is sobbing openly now. He's backed himself into a corner, muttering the names of the Aesir like a child at temple. Odin, Thor, Balder, Freya, Odin, Thor, over and over. One of the creatures stops in front of him, tilts its antlered head. Doesn't touch him, doesn't hurt him, just listens. Then it moves on, and your cousin stops speaking, stops moving, stops being. The trader's on his knees beside the hearth, palms open, face lit by the fire. They're taking inventory, he says with awe. They're choosing who gets to stay in the story. You whisper, what does that mean? He grins. Not all stories get to end. Your mother stands slowly, placing herself between the creatures and your aunt, who hasn't moved in hours. One of the things, its fur matted with frost and glistening sap, tilts its body toward her. She doesn't flinch. She says, "This is still our house." And for a moment everything pauses, even the fire. Then one of them bows, a deep, graceful bend that pulls its mask close to the dirt floor. It presses something into the soil, something small and round. Then it rises and steps away. When it's gone, your mother walks over and picks it up. It's a tooth, still warm, still bleeding. That's when the dreams start waking up. You thought they'd been just that, dreams. Fevered, starved flashes of nonsense your brain conjured while the world crumbled around you. But now you see them. In the rafters, in the fire, in the corners of the longhouse that shouldn't exist. All those shapes you half saw, all those whispers you tried to ignore. They were never dreams, they were leaks, and now the dam has cracked. The visitors begin speaking, not aloud, not with words, but inside your skull. The pressure is sudden. immense, like your thoughts are being pushed to the side to make room for something else. You hear them in the same way you remember a sound from long ago, not as a sentence, but as a knowing. They tell you the winter isn't a season, it's a creature, a cycle that must feed to return, a wheel with teeth, and you, your family, your village, were the offering this year. You were meant to forget by now, but the fire remembered, and so did you, and that ruined the ritual. The antlered ones are here to fix it, to finish the sacrifice properly, to end what you started when you whispered into the coals and said, yes. The youngest of them steps toward the hearth, no taller than a child. Its antlers are still growing, small nubs covered in velvet moss. It reaches into the flames without hesitation and pulls something out. It's your brother's cloak, unburned, unworn, still soaked in snowmelt. He's not with it, just the cloth, and the weight that comes with it. You take it gently, and for a moment the creature leans its masked head against yours, and you see. You see the forest cracking open like an egg. You see a mouth beneath the ice wide enough to swallow mountains. You see a ring of people dancing around a fire, chanting your name backwards. You see the fjord bleed. You see the gods turn their faces away. And you see yourself in the future, older, colder, alone, still living. Then the creature steps back, and the vision ends. The fire goes out, not in smoke, not in sparks, it's just gone, like someone pinched it between their fingers. Darkness floods the house. The only light now is from the eyes of the visitors, small points of flickering blue, red, green, like lanterns beneath the masks. They begin to sing, not music, not chanting, and just a vibration, a note, the one you've heard in dreams, the one your brother hummed, the one the baby whispered. It fills your ears, your chest, your teeth. You feel the walls shudder, and you realize they're not just finishing a ritual, they're rewriting it. Scholars might call this mass hallucination, collective madness, starvation-induced hysteria. But you know what you're feeling. You know what they're doing. They're resetting the memory of this place, scraping it clean like bark from wood, wiping it of faces, names, warmth, blood. This house will stand in the spring, but it won't remember you. The creatures begin to leave, one by one, fading into corners, melting into frost. The last one, the tallest, pauses at the broken wall, turns, points to the ceiling beam above the hearth. The runes you once saw flickering and moving, now they're solid, burned deep and glowing faint gold. They read, trade accepted. Then the creature steps back into the snow and vanishes. Dawn, real dawn. You feel it before you see it. A soft warmth pressing against the outer walls. Not a fire, not a creature. The sun. It's come back. Too bright, too sudden, but real. You step outside with your father, your mother, your aunt. The snow is melting, dripping, and the sky is blue. The fjord has cracked open, and above you a raven flies, calling once, then again, just like it used to. You feel the memory of the longhouse slipping already. The fire, the runes, your brother's voice, the baby's hum, all of it drifting out of reach, and you're okay with that, because the sun is warm and the door is closed. For now, the fire is gone, but smoke still curls from the roof beam like a memory that doesn't know it's over. You're sitting just inside the threshold of the longhouse, legs folded, the morning sun crawling timidly across the floor. It's weak, this light, watery and hesitant, but real. And after so many weeks of endless dark, that's enough to make your skin ache with the shock of it. Everything is too bright now, too exposed. Shadows falling at strange, unfamiliar angles. Your body doesn't trust this world anymore, and maybe it shouldn't, because the fire may be out, but the scent of burning is stronger than ever. It comes from the far end of the room. You turn slowly, heart already sinking, and that's when you see it. Thin smoke rising from the edge of the storage room, curling through the seams of the wooden slats like steam off a split log. You call for your father. You call again. But your voice feels heavy. The words fall to the ground instead of rising. By the time he runs in, the smoke has turned black. It catches faster than you'd believe possible. The roof, still damp from condensation, shouldn't burn. Neither should the beams, soaked in a season's worth of sweat, blood, and breath. But the fire doesn't care. It moves like it knows the place, like it's retracing old steps. First the thatching, then the rafters. Sparks leap with purpose, one licking across the ceiling like a claw, another dropping into the dry hay near the bedding. Your father grabs a bucket, but there's no water. The snow has melted, and what little's left is black with ash. Your mother screams, not in fear, but fury. "This was ours," she shouts as if someone is listening. "We gave everything." And for a flicker of a moment the fire hesitates. A single flame draws back into itself, but then it surges forward, as if remembering its part in the script, as if it must. The others gather fast, no panic, just grim resolve. The way people move when the worst thing has happened before, and they already know how to clean it up. You form a line, passing dirt, handfuls of snow, old broth water, even urine to slow the spread. None of it works. The fire wants this place now. It's not eating to survive. It's consuming to erase. The longhouse burns down by afternoon. You and your family watch from a distance, seated on overturned barrels and sacks that should have been food. It's too warm to be winter now. The sky's a smudged watercolour of pale yellows and pinks. Like it too, is trying to pretend the darkness never happened. But the longhouse remembers. It doesn't collapse all at once, it fights. The back wall, the one that bowed, the one that breathed, burns last. When it finally gives, the sound is wrong. Not timber breaking, not straw igniting. It's a sigh, a long exhausted exhale, like something old and patient finally choosing to let go. The ash that follows smells like herbs, blood, and burnt teeth. Later, you dig through the wreckage for anything salvageable. You find very little. A cracked bowl, a single bone knife, half of the Velva's rune, burned into a beam now split clean in two. But no bodies, not the trader, not your cousin, not even the dog. You check the floor beneath the hearth. It's empty, smooth, like the fire swept everything down into its mouth and swallowed the past whole. You can't stop thinking about the phrase "trade accepted." You didn't write it, but someone did. There's debate about fire in ancient Viking culture. Most view it as sacred, a source of life, protection, and ritual purity. Fires lit to honour gods, to cleanse spirits, to guide the dead. But some fires, it's said, were cursed, set not to warm but to invite, flames that opened more than they closed, the kind of fire that leaves no bones. You didn't believe those stories. Now you're sitting in the ashes of one. Your father rebuilds in silence, not the whole house, just a small hut, barely big enough for the remaining few of you. It leans, smells like smoke, and groans every time the wind shifts, but it's shelter. Sort of. You help him without speaking, and you don't ask when spring will come, because it already has, and it came too early, and you're not sure what's in the soil anymore. That night someone goes missing. Your cousin, the quiet one. No scream, no signs of struggle, just gone. His boots are by the door, untouched. A bowl of broth still warm by his bedding, and a symbol drawn on the inside of the hut's door. You don't recognize it, but the fire might have. You hike to the edge of the forest and scream his name. No echo, no response. But deep within the trees you feel something watching. Not evil, not kind, just hungry. Your mother begins hoarding scraps, bits of bone, feathers, even small stones that look like eyes. She arranges them around the hut in spirals. When asked why, she only says, to remember the shape. No one pushes her, because you've all started seeing the shapes too, in the leaves, in the drift patterns of ash, in your dreams. Your aunt wakes up screaming once, clawing at her throat. She won't say what she saw, but you find scratches on the walls that weren't there before. Deep ones, claw-like, burned at the tips. You ask your father if this is normal, and he says, "It's ours." You don't ask again. At some point, someone steals the last barrel of mead. It causes the first real fight since the fire, not because of the drink itself, but because of the lie. Your cousin swears she didn't take it. Your father believes her. Your mother does not. The argument ends with a broken nose, a cracked bowl, and your aunt quietly standing with a stone in her hand, eyes wide, whispering a name none of you remember teaching her. No one wins, no one apologizes, but everyone goes to sleep that night holding a weapon. You lie awake, listening to the wind crawl along the hut's seams, It doesn't whistle, it hums, same note, always the same note. The one the fire sang, the one the child whispered, the one the shadows still carry. You think you hear a voice in it now, or it's saying your name, not out loud, inside your skull, and part of you wants to answer, just to see what would happen, just to finish the trade. You don't sleep that night. You just stare at the coals long dead and wonder if they're still listening. The snow begins to weep. That's what your mother calls it. Weeping. Not melting, not thawing. There's no sun beating down, no sudden warmth rolling in from the fjord. It's not a change in season, it's something else. You watch it happen one quiet morning as you crouch near the remains of the goat shed. The snow doesn't soften, it sinks. Drips form at its edges like tears, slow and steady, pooling in dark patches on the earth beneath. Every tree branch, every slope of untouched white starts to glisten as if mourning, as if the snow itself is grieving. You stick out your hand and catch a few drops. They're cold, but not frozen, heavy, like oil, and when you wipe them on your cloak they leave a faint grey smear behind, like ash mixed with water, like soot crying from the sky. No one knows what to say about it, because no one wants to admit what it might mean. Inside the hut things grow quieter, not peaceful, just still. Your family doesn't speak much anymore. Words feel heavy, like anything spoken aloud might attract attention from something still circling just outside. The shadows move in strange ways now, stretching across surfaces they shouldn't, flickering even when there's no firelight. You try to ignore them, pretend they're tricks of the eye. But your little cousin insists they're watching her. She points at them in the corners, she tells you they whisper back, and she's right, you've heard them too. The ground starts to shift beneath the snow. Not much, just small tremors at first. Enough to rattle bowls, to crack the ice in the water pail, but you know what they are. You've felt them before. It's the breathing, the slow inhale of whatever still rests beneath the earth, belly full of ash and fire and bone. The snow doesn't melt, the snow sinks, drained from below, drunk by something too old to name. You try to leave once. You hike up the ridgeline with your father, hoping to see open land, hoping to find a path to the coast or to the nearest settlement. But when you reach the top, the world on the other side is wrong. The trees are gone, not chopped, not burned, gone, like they were never there. Just white nothing stretching to the edge of vision, a blank canvas with nothing to cling to. The only mark is a single black line cutting through the snow, straight, deliberate, vanishing into the horizon. You both turn back without speaking. Whatever's waiting past that line, it's not for you. The ash begins to fall 3 days later, not from fire, not from wind, just from above. Fine grey powder drifting down like it's been stored in the clouds, waiting for its cue. It clings to everything, your clothes, your tongue, the skin under your eyes. It doesn't choke you, not quite, but it sticks. It marks. Even the goats refuse to eat with it in the air. One wanders too far from the hut and simply stops, stands in the falling ash, head tilted, eyes milky. By evening it's gone, no prints, no blood, just hoof-shaped divots in the snow, slowly filling with grey. You find your cousin kneeling outside the hut later that night. She's drawing circles in the snow, tiny ones, dozens, each the same size as her palm, each with a dot in the centre. You ask her what they are. She says, eyes. You ask why she's making them. She doesn't look up. They told me it's polite, she says, and then she closes her own. Your mother burns her hair that night, a long braid she's kept since she was a girl, tied with blue ribbon. She lays it carefully in the ashes of the old hearth, pours water over it first, so it won't light quickly, she says, so it will smoulder. She says it's an offering to the memory of warmth. You wake the next morning to the sound of dripping, inside the hut. The roof hasn't broken, but the frost on the beams is melting now, drop by drop, into the cold hearth below. No fire, no smoke, but a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat turned liquid. Your father watches it for hours. He starts counting, says it's always 7 drops, then a pause, then 7 again. You try not to let that mean anything, but of course, it does. The animals stop making noise, no bleating, no low grunts, not even footsteps, and in the silence you start hearing the other things again. The scratching under the floor, the low hum from behind the walls, Yes, even the new ones. You thought you'd left it behind when the longhouse burned, but the air here remembers, and the thing that slept in the wood, it found new wood to sleep in. That night you hear something walking across the roof. It's too light for a person, too steady for an animal. Your father grabs the axe. Your mother grabs your hand, and you all sit there, still as stones, listening to the soft tap, tap, tap overhead until it stops and never starts again. In the morning, the door is open, just a crack, and the snow inside is untouched. But the mark on the frame, your cousin's circle with the central dot, has been etched deeper. Now it bleeds sap, red, sticky, and warm. There's debate among folklorists about the second melt, a phenomenon where early thaws in ancient Viking lands coincided with strange omens. Cows birthing twins with shared eyes, flocks of birds flying inland and disappearing, village wells filling with sweet water that stank of flowers. Some say it's just myth, a cautionary tale to fear false springs. Others say it's the earth giving back what it was never meant to keep. You wonder which kind you're standing in. Because the melt around you doesn't feel like forgiveness. It feels like release. Your father finds the old fire mark beneath the snow, the one carved into the floor of the longhouse back before it burned. The spiral, the handprint, the dot at its centre, still there, still warm. That night, your mother says she saw the baby again, not in a dream. Outside, standing by the old goat altar, pale as milk, eyes like cracked coal, humming that single note. She says it bowed, and walked into the trees, and the trees opened. You try to stay awake that night, watching the snow through the open slat in the roof, but when you blink, it's morning. And there's something in your hand, not a dream, a tooth, the same one your mother found, warm, still bleeding, still waiting. The snow keeps weeping, and you finally understand what it's grieving for. Not you, not your brother, not the dead. It's mourning the silence that used to live here. The one you broke, the one that's coming back. The first real sunlight cracks across the horizon like a wound. Not a smear of pale haze, not the false glimmer that's been hanging around for days like a dying torch, but light, pure, bright, blinding in a way that makes your chest tighten. You feel it before you see it. The world around you lifts its head, as if everything, trees, snow, soil, bones, has been holding its breath since the dark began. And now it exhales. You step outside and squint into the glow. The sky is an aching, glassy blue, sharp enough to cut. For a moment the world looks normal, clean. The snow gleams. The trees look less haunted. Your shadow stands behind you instead of beside you, but then you remember something you were told. If you see the sun before the hunt rides home, don't look at it. And now you're staring. You blink and look down fast, heart hammering, but something's already wrong. You can feel it behind your eyelids. That sun. It wasn't yours. It burned too slow. It pulsed, like it was looking back. You don't tell anyone, not because you're brave, because you know there's nothing left to say. The hut is quiet. No one's talking anymore, not even out of habit. Your cousin hasn't spoken since the tooth appeared in her boot 2 nights ago. Your mother sleeps in snatches, muttering in broken Norse, calling out to names you've never heard. Your aunt walks the perimeter of the hut every hour on the hour, dragging a stick behind her to carve runes in the slush. She hums now. The tune's familiar. It's the one your brother sang when he started slipping into the fire's voice. You've stopped trying to get her to stop, because the wolves are listening again, and you don't want to give them any more names. You lose someone else that day. Your father. He doesn't die. He doesn't leave. He just stops. You find him standing by the edge of the stream, what's left of it. The ice has finally cracked, the water running thin and dark beneath, like blood in a wound that won't close. He's just standing there, eyes wide, axe loose in his hand. When you call his name, he doesn't turn, so you walk to him, slowly. He's whispering. You listen. It's numbers, over and over. 7, then a pause. 7, then a pause. You grab his arm, he blinks, looks at you, says, "They're counting something," then drops the axe and walks straight into the stream. Not drowning, just disappearing. Like the water takes him in with barely a splash, like he's stepping back into the dark. You dig through the mud for hours, find nothing, not even a ripple, just that slow weeping from the banks. Inside, your mother lights what's left of the goat tallow in a rusted lamp. It burns weak and sour like the smell of meat gone bad. The flame dances oddly, leaning toward the doorway. She sets it down, then locks eyes with you and says, "He's the first one it wanted." You ask what it is. She doesn't answer, she just starts to cry, not loud, not human, like the snow. That night, someone knocks at the door. You all freeze. It's soft, polite. 3 knocks and then silence. You wait. No one moves. Then the voice comes. Not from outside, from behind the walls. "Let me in." You know that voice. You've heard it before. It was your brother's once. It was the traders. It was the babies. It was yours in a dream. And now it's wearing your father's throat. Your cousin opens her mouth to scream, but nothing comes out, just steam, and a second knock, inside the hut on the opposite wall. You don't sleep after that. No one does. You take turns watching the doorway, not to keep something out, but to make sure it doesn't open on its own. The next morning the sun is stronger. The air is almost soft. You walk outside, the world looks normal again. But that's the worst part, because it shouldn't. There should be signs, ruins, burnt trees, ash piles where people used to live. But everything is back in place. 2 back. The goat shed has returned, unburnt. The snow is untouched, even where your cousin carved circles just the day before. And the longhouse is standing, whole, unbroken, its roof intact, its door hanging open like it's been waiting, and from within, a soft orange flicker. Firelight. You run back to the hut, slam the door. Your mother's already weeping, and she says, "It's not over." You don't argue, because now you understand. You survived the winter, but not the story. And stories? They loop. There's a folk belief buried in the old sagas about certain winters that don't end the right way. They call it the dead return, a cycle where the snow melts, the sun returns, but something remains. Something that doesn't belong. A borrowed soul. A reverse death. A deal struck during the long dark that no one remembers making. The only clue, they say, is that spring feels too clean, like the world has been replaced, not restored. You step outside again. The wind is soft, the trees are green, there are birds, but they don't sing. They just hover in the branches, blinking too slowly, like they're remembering what it means to be birds, like they were something else not long ago. You decide to enter the longhouse, alone. Everyone begs you not to. But you have to see. You walk the same path you've walked 1,000 times, but now the snow parts before your feet, like it knows you. The doorway is too wide, the fire burns inside, and on the hearth something waits. A bundle, tied in red thread. You open it. It's a pair of boots. Your father's, still wet, still warm, and tucked inside, 2 black stones, round, smooth, heavy, and pulsing like hearts. You leave them where they are. You walk backward out the door. You do not speak. You do not turn your back. Because if the stories are true, the longhouse is not just a house now. It's a mouth, and you've been inside it before. That night you see the sun set for the first time in months. The sky burns violet. The birds finally sing, but the shadows don't stretch the way they should. And your reflection in the water smiles before you do. The sun has returned. The snow is melting, but the story is still hungry, and it remembers your name. The season arrives like a lie told too smoothly, too practiced. Each day now the air grows warmer, the ice on the fjord thins, and the birds gather overhead like a choir rehearsing a forgotten tune. You plant your feet in the thawing earth and try to feel grateful. You survived. You made it through the long dark, the hunger, the voices, the fire. The cold hasn't eaten you yet. But there's a sharpness beneath the warmth, like teeth behind a smile. It isn't over, not really. The longhouse still stands, untouched, unburned, exactly as it was the day before the fire devoured it. Each time you pass it, the door is open, just a crack, just wide enough to suggest someone went in, just narrow enough that you can pretend someone didn't come out. You've tried to ignore it. You've told your mother to stay away, warned your aunt to stop staring at it in the evenings. But the longhouse is magnetic. Every part of your body wants to glance back, to peek inside, to finish whatever was started, because there's a fire burning in there again, always warm, always ready, always waiting. The forest has begun to whisper again. You hear it at night when the wind dies down. Not words, not clearly, but sounds shaped like them. Bent syllables. Syllables you know you've heard before, just not spoken aloud. The trees tilt toward you as you pass, just slightly, like they recognize you. One evening you find a trail of goat prints in the mud near the edge of the trees. You haven't seen a goat in over 2 months. You follow the trail until it disappears in a circle of crushed earth. Perfect. Tight. Like something descended rather than walked away. In the centre, a black feather. You pick it up, it hums in your hand, you put it in your pocket, and it's gone when you reach home. Your cousin begins to draw again. Not runes this time, not symbols, faces. Dozens of them, scratched into the floor with a shard of bone. Each one slightly different. Some with empty eyes, some with hollow mouths, some screaming silently into the grain of the wood. One of them looks exactly like your brother. She says she's trying to remember. You ask what? She says, "Which ones were real?" The river runs backward for one day. No one believes you when you say it, but you saw it with your own eyes, the fish floating belly up, drifting north against the current, the reflection of the sun pulsing upstream. You told your father, but he just sat still, watching the fire like it was telling him a bedtime story. Later that night, the reflection in the water blinked at you. You don't go near the river now. Your dreams are no longer dreams, they're repeats, replays. Each night, the same sequence, the fire leaning to the left, the elk in the clearing, antlers draped in hanging moss, the door that shouldn't open but does, the baby crying, the baby humming, the baby standing upright, silent. At the end of each dream, you're walking toward the longhouse. You always stop at the door, you always want to go inside, and you always wake up before you do, until the one time you don't. That night you pass through the doorway. Inside, the room is empty except for ash, but not cold, warm, familiar. In the centre, the hearth, no fire, just glowing coals, and something sitting cross-legged beside them. It's you, older, thinner, smiling. The other you reaches toward the fire and pulls something out. A book, bound in hide, no title, just a single rune burned into the cover, a circle with a dot. You reach out to touch it, and wake up clutching something. It's a piece of birch bark, scorched at the edges, your name carved on one side and the rune on the other. There's no explanation. No more traders, no more omens, no more rules. Whatever bargain was made, it's already been paid. But payment, it turns out, doesn't end the story. It starts it over. Your aunt won't sleep indoors anymore. She's taken to curling up beneath the trees, wrapped in fur, whispering to the dirt. She says the roots are remembering again. She says they're retelling what the snow tried to hide. You ask what that means. She says, "It means we were never the first." And you believe her, because every now and then you find footprints in the woods that look exactly like yours. Same stride, same heel drag, same bent toe, but they're old, worn down, like they were made a long time ago, before you ever arrived. The birds start dropping feathers again, always in the same pattern, always near the longhouse. Once, you find a full set laid out on your bedding in the exact shape of a person. When you blink, they're gone. One afternoon, your mother begins reciting a poem none of you taught her. It's not in your language. It's older, scratchy, like wind through reeds. You try to write it down, but the paper curls and blackens. You try again, same result. She stops speaking, looks at you and says, "Not everything wants to be remembered." Then she lies down and doesn't wake up again. That! You bury her at the edge of the fjord. The water doesn't freeze. It parts for her, as if the land knows, as if it's making room. There's a debate in some circles about whether the Norse believed in stories or simply respected them, whether sagas were religious or just warnings wrapped in myth. But after this winter, after this year, you've learned something better. Stories don't care if you believe in them. They believe in you. You sit outside the longhouse one last time. The door is open, the hearth inside flickers, the floor is clean, empty, ready, and you know what it wants. You can feel it in your ribs, in the part of your brain that still hums that tune when you're not thinking. You take a breath, you step forward, and as the doorway swallows you, you finally understand. Winter never ends, it just waits for the next telling.